Chapter 1300. After killing Yang Lai and the Ling family's father and son, Nie Tian no longer delayed and left with Peng Fangfang. From beginning to end, Peng Fangfang's expression was stiff and her mind was blank. She didn't know when her brother had such a terrifying friend. After Nie Tian left, he went to another auction house and bought some medicinal herbs before returning to the hotel. After handing Peng Fangfang to old Peng, Nie Tian began to refine spirit pills. A day later, Nie Tian walked out of the room. Lord Nie Tian. Peng Shi saw Nie Tian walk out and shouted with excitement. He already knew what Nie Tian had done. Within a day, the news of Nie Tian killing Yang Lai and the Ling family's father and son had spread throughout Sky Edge City. Peng Shi didn't expect Nie Tian's strength to be so strong that he could even kill the Ling family's patriarch. However, he didn't know that Nie Tian had also killed a person far stronger than the Ling family's patriarch. At this time, Long Outyen and Lin Ling were still recovering, and Mo Rushi was also cultivating hard. Nie Tian didn't want to disturb them and said to Peng Shi, "Old Peng, let's go to a secluded place." Next, Nie Tian was going to unseal the Qilin seal for Peng Xiongfei. It was estimated that it would cause a big commotion, so it was better to go to a secluded place. Yes. Peng Shi nodded heavily. At this time, Nie Tian was almost a godlike existence in his heart. To be able to meet Nie Tian, it was really a great fortune. A moment later, Nie Tian and the others appeared in a remote wilderness. "This is the place." Nie Tian spread out his divine sense and confirmed that there was no one around and nodded. "Okay." Peng Shi nodded heavily and let Peng Xiongfei walk over. His eyes were blazing. "Take this spirit pill." Nie Tian smiled faintly and handed a spirit pill to Peng Xiongfei. This spirit pill was just refined by Nie Tian. It contained various medicinal herbs that had a strong stimulation to the seal and could trigger the Qilin seal to be unsealed. Peng Xiongfei took the spirit pill and swallowed it without hesitation. "Sit cross-legged, concentrate and feel the Qilin seal," Nie Tian said solemnly. Peng Xiongfei sat cross-legged, and a faint white mist rose from his small body. Peng Shi and Peng Fangfang watched from the side. Their nerves were tense, afraid that something unexpected would happen. The moment he swallowed the pill, Peng Xiongfei felt a violent force appear in his body, constantly attacking his Qilin arm. This kind of power was too terrifying, as if it was going to tear his body apart. Peng Xiongfei wasn't very old, but his willpower was very strong. He endured the pain and didn't say a word. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and he had a pained expression, but he still focused his mind on the Qilin seal. Nie Tian smiled and said inwardly, "Not bad, not bad. Not bad at all." He thought that Peng Xiongfei wouldn't be able to bear the pain of unsealing the Qilin seal. He didn't expect Peng Xiongfei to be so tough. After a while, Peng Xiongfei couldn't bear the pain anymore and screamed. Right at this moment, his right arm suddenly swelled up. In an instant, it tore through his clothes and became 5 to 6 meters long. His entire arm was covered with scales. It was dark and green, and a violent power surged on it. It was very strange. Seeing this, Peng Shi's face stiffened. He was so surprised that he couldn't speak. "The Qilin seal is unsealed." Nie Tian nodded. This kind of pain was terrible, even worse than when Qiu Shan unsealed the Azure Dragon seal. Boom! The next moment, Peng Xiongfei suddenly stretched out his right arm and punched. The shadow of a Qilin appeared and dashed forward. Walala! After the shadow of the Qilin rushed past, a deep pit that was hundreds of meters long appeared on the ground. The trees in front of it all collapsed. The Qilin arm is indeed terrifying, as expected of the head of the 4 great profound arms. Seeing this scene, Nie Tian's eyes slightly trembled. Although this kind of destructive power was extremely limited, one must know that Peng Xiongfei's Qilin arm had only unsealed one Qilin seal. If all 12 Qilin seals were unsealed, the power would definitely be beyond imagination. After a while, Peng Xiongfei gradually calmed down. His arm returned to normal. When he stood up, there seemed to be a shadow of a qilin around him. It was very powerful. The qilin seal is unsealed. Nie Tian smiled faintly. He sensed Peng Xiongfei's strength. It had actually reached the 9th level of the origin spirit realm. This strength was indeed very, very weak. But Peng Xiongfei was only 5 years old. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably still be at the stage of awakening their origin meridians. Lord Nie Tian. At this moment, Ping Shi walked over. His expression was slightly awkward. He laughed and said, "I want Xiongfei to acknowledge you as his master. What do you think?" Peng Shi understood at this moment. If Peng Xiongfei followed him, his future accomplishments would not be too high. But if he followed Nie Tian, it would be completely different. Nie Tian was too terrifying. If Peng Xiongfei could acknowledge him as his master, his future accomplishments would be limitless. "Little fellow, are you willing?" Nie Tian smiled faintly. Actually, he also had this intention in his heart. It was just that he was too embarrassed to say it. Now that Peng Shi took the initiative to suggest it, he asked Peng Xiongfei, "Brat, hurry up and kowtow." How shrewd was Peng Shi! He immediately understood and roared at Peng Xiongfei. Peng Xiongfei was very quick-witted. His eyes flickered. He took a step forward and knelt in front of Nie Tian. He said in a loud voice, "Master, please accept this disciple's kowtow." "Okay." Nie Tian smiled faintly. He helped Peng Xiongfei up and said, "From now on, you are my 14th personal disciple." 14th? Peng Shi was stunned. He did not expect that Nie Tian had already taken in so many disciples previously. "In the following period of time, you'll follow by my side." Nie Tian smiled faintly, very satisfied with Peng Xiongfei. With the qilin seal unsealed, Peng Xiongfei's strength would advance rapidly in the future. Barring no accidents, he might advance to the 5th level Heavenly Emperor and above before the age of 20. Following that, Nie Tian and the rest left and returned to the inn. "My lord." At this time, Lin Ling walked out of the room. His injuries were not severe. He had already fully recovered at this time. "Lin Ling, I have something for you to do," Nie Tian said directly when he saw Lin Ling. "My lord, please speak," Lin Ling said respectfully. "Lin Ling, make a trip to the Limitless Mountain with Elder Peng and the rest. Make arrangements for Elder Peng at the Limitless Mountain. Tell Lord Emo Qianjun to come to World's Edge City," Nie Tian said solemnly. World's Edge City was not safe, so Nie Tian prepared to let Elder Peng and the rest leave first and let Lin Ling escort them to the Limitless Mountain. Half a month later, Nie Tian would go to Purgatory Mountain with Heavenly Works and Ghost Scar. Then, they would go to World's Edge Purgatory to rescue people. But Nie Tian kept feeling that just Ghost Scar alone was still not safe. Hence, he decided to let Emo Qianjun make a trip. If Jiu Qianxing and Emo Qianjun were together, the two of them coming together, that could not be better. Nie Tian decided in his heart that it was time to break off relations with the Snow Emperor. He was confident that with his current strength, even if compared to peak powerhouses, he was still lacking, but he was not far off. Chapter 1301. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days passed. In the room, Nie Tian stood up, his entire body's aura sharp like an unsheathed sword, sharp to the extreme. Half a month of bitter cultivation, his strength had already completely stabilized, even reaching peak 8th level Heavenly Emperor, faintly showing signs of breaking through to 9th level. Before long, my strength will be able to break through to 9th level Heavenly Emperor. At that time, it will be the time for me to take revenge. Nie Tian's eyes flickered, his gaze cold and murderous. He did not know if Qi Wuxioshan was still alive. If he was alive, he must rescue him. If he died, he must take revenge. "Snow Emperor Luo Chunhun, your good days are coming to an end," Nie Tian said sinisterly in his heart, his expression revealing killing intent. Today is the day I arranged to meet with Tiangong. It's time to go find them. After a long time, Nie Tian calmed down and muttered. Next, he would follow Tiangong and Ghost Scar to make a trip to Purgatory Mountain. Big brother! When walking out of the room, Long Aotian's figure appeared. Seeing that Nie Tian seemed to be about to leave, he asked, Are we going to Horizon Purgatory? Now is not the time yet. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, I have some things to do. You and Rushi stay here. Her sage imprint has just been removed. There is holy power in her body that needs to be refined and fused. When I'm not around, you have to protect her. Mo Rushi had already been cultivating hard in the room for half a month, but this was far from enough. Her sage physique had already awakened for a very long time, and her body contained tremendous holy power. But because of the sage imprint, this holy power had always been suppressed previously. Now that the imprint was removed, the holy power urgently needed to be fused. It would probably take a very long time. Nie Tian guessed that when Mo Rushi fused all of the holy power, her strength would have a huge increase, at least rising to 5th level Heavenly Emperor and above. Since the sage physique was known as the number 1 martial physique throughout the ages, its potential was unimaginable. If not because of the sage imprint, Mo Rushi's strength was definitely not just the current 3rd level Heavenly Emperor. Big brother, don't worry, I will definitely protect sister-in-law. Long Aotian nodded heavily. Okay, Nie Tian said, I will be out for a few days at best, half a month at worst. You must be careful. After saying that, Nie Tian sensed Mo Rushi's aura, and after confirming that everything was normal, he did not stay and left. Moments later, Nie Tian appeared in a remote area of Heaven's Edge City, where he and Tiangong had agreed to meet. Upon seeing Tiangong and Ghost Scar from afar, Nie Tian landed and said with a faint smile, Sorry to keep you waiting, my lords. Nyeva of up of nya of comma of Lord Aojian is indeed worthy of being the number 1 person of Heaven Realm. Your strength has improved so fast. Gui Hen admires you, Gui Hen said indifferently, but was extremely sincere. Half a month ago, he felt that he had 70% chance of beating Nie Tian, but at present, he was only 60% confident. Nie Tian was too frightening. His strength improved so fast that it was shocking. Brother Gui Hen is too kind. Nie Tian smiled faintly, then looked at Tiangong and said, Lord Tiangong, where is my sword Absolute Heaven Slash? It's done. Tiangong laughed, flipped his palm, and a cold sharp sword appeared. Immediately, the Emperor's light soared into the sky. The light was extremely dazzling, rushing straight to the clouds. What a sharp aura! Nie Tian's divine sense moved, and his eyes could not help but tremble. The current sword Absolute Heaven Slash, the Emperor's light was very strong. It was even stronger than the sword Absolute Heaven Slash that Nie Tian had seen for the first time in his previous life. Nie Tian, your sword billets are very good. I said that such a good sword billets will definitely be recast into an Emperor weapon that is even sharper than the original sword Absolute Heaven Slash. Tiangong laughed and said, I have always been obsessed with the art of weapon refining. This sword is the most satisfying work of my life. Nie Tian smiled and took the sword Absolute Heaven Slash. Suddenly, he felt a terrifying power of Emperor's light flowing into his body. With a thought, the sword will and the Emperor's light merged perfectly. Sword Absolute Heaven Slash, my old friend, you will finally return to the peak. Nie Tian slashed out with his sword, a sword will rushed straight to the clouds. The brilliance of the sword bloomed in the space, as if it was cutting a gap between heaven and earth. When Ghost Scar saw the power of this casual slash, his heart inexplicably trembled. What a terrifying sword will! It seems that after Nie Tian's rebirth, His sword talent is even more terrifying than before. In his previous life, Nye Tian was already number 1 on the heavenly sword ranking. Now, his strength was even more terrifying, truly making people feel apprehensive. At this moment, Ghost Scar even had a feeling that if he were to fight Nye Tian, it would be hard to say who would win. Let's go. Nye Tian put away the sword Absolute Heaven Slash and smiled faintly. He gave Ghost Scar a look, but he felt strange. Just what was that black robe on Ghost Scar's body? Why was it so strange? His holographic divine runes actually could not see through Ghost Scar's true appearance. However, Nye Tian did not care too much. After all, everyone had their own secrets. Perhaps Ghost Scar's appearance was his greatest secret. The three of them did not waste any more words. Their figures moved, like 3 shooting stars, shooting straight into the clouds. High up in the sky, the 3 of them were extremely fast, heading in the direction of Purgatory Mountain. Half an hour later, a continuous mountain range appeared beneath their feet. As far as the eye could see, what they saw was not lush and verdant, but an expanse of filthy darkness. Purgatory Mountain was extremely close to Purgatory World's edge. It suffered the roasting of soul-refining flames all year round, so the trees were all filthy black, appearing strange and sinister. This is Purgatory Mountain. Tiangong looked at the filthy black mountain range beneath his feet. He suddenly gave Ghost Scar a look and said with a chuckle, "Ghost Scar, if you merge with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, what are your chances of advancing to the deity realm?" 1. Ghost Scar stared blankly for a moment, then immediately said, Ghost Scar merging with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame was obviously to advance to a higher realm. And for him, the deity realm was a higher realm. However, even if it was like this, after merging with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, his chances of advancing to the deity realm were not high, only 1 in 10. I feel that if you give the Dusk Blade Heart Flame to Nye Tian, his chances will be far greater than yours. Tiangong chuckled, saying with a crafty expression, I have no interest in the Dusk Blade Heart Flame. Nye Tian laughed bitterly. How could he not hear that Tiangong, this old man, was afraid that he would fight over the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, purposely saying this? Many thanks. Ghost Scar nodded heavily. He also knew that if Nye Tian merged with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, his chances of breaking into the deity realm would indeed be greater than his. Nye Tian indeed did not have much interest in the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, because he believed that even without the Dusk Blade Heart Flame, with his demon god origin embryo, the supreme dragon vein, and the star origin stone, he could still easily break into the deity realm. He just needed a bit of time. Alright, let's enter. Tiangong raised his eyebrows with a smile. The devil fire diagram appeared in his hand, preparing to enter Purgatory Mountain. Wait. Right at this time, Nye Tian instead frowned. Then, he reached out his hand to stop Tiangong and Ghost Scar, saying in a low voice, Someone is coming. Tiangong was stunned. Then, his divine sense spread out, and his expression instantly became astonished. He said, It's actually the Illusion Emperor. Why did he come? Chapter 1302. When Nye Tian was about to enter Purgatory Mountain, he suddenly sensed that someone had arrived. With his divine sense, Nye Tian found out that it was one of the 9 emperors, Illusion Emperor, Bailey Fengchen, and his disciple, Zhuo Qianchen. Nye Tian had seen Zhuo Qianchen before. In the ancient sword tomb, they almost killed each other. Nye Tian did not expect that Illusion Emperor and Zhuo Qianchen would also come here. Didn't Zhuo Qianchen obtain the 4th demonic fire, the first nightmare's demonic fire diagram? Shouldn't he be looking for the first nightmare? Why did he come to Purgatory Mountain? Nye Tian suddenly thought of something and asked curiously. He remembered that Zhuo Qianchen made a deal with someone. Someone asked him to kill Nye Tian. Whether he succeeded or not, the person would give him the 4th demonic fire diagram. The 4th demonic fire had a powerful illusion power. It could devour a warrior's soul and divine sense. It was extremely terrifying. Zhuo Qianqian wanted to use the fourth demonic fire to break through to the seventh rank illusionist. Illusion Emperor is not easy to deal with. Don't tell me he also came for the demonic fire? Tiangong smiled bitterly. He seemed to be a little cautious. Let's avoid them. Ghost Scar nodded. We can't avoid them. Nie Tian shook his head and smiled. Bailey Fengqian has found us. Bailey Fengqian was the strongest illusionist in the heaven domain. His perception was even stronger than Tiangong's. How could he not notice Nie Tian's group? Lord Tiangong, I did not expect you to come to Purgatory Mountain. I thought you had gone to enjoy your old age. At this moment, the void shook slightly. Illusion Emperor, who was tens of thousands of meters away, flickered and appeared next to Nie Tian's group. His movement skill was extremely strange. Half step into the void realm. Nie Tian's eyes trembled when he saw this. Rumor had it that Bailey Fengqian had the half-step void skill, which could cut through the void and teleport. Nie Tian had never seen such a thing in his previous life. Now that he had seen it for himself, it was truly terrifying. With such a strange movement technique, the Illusion Emperor's strength was truly terrifying. Nie Tian raised his head slightly and looked at the person who had come. He was dressed in white and had an illusory halo around him. It was very strange and gave off an incomparably holy feeling. After over 100 years, Illusion Monarch's strength has improved again. It seems he will break through to Tier 8 illusionists soon. Nie Tian's divine sense swept past the Illusion Emperor's body. The holographic divine inscriptions could sense an extremely terrifying power hidden within the Illusion Emperor's body. It was like a ferocious beast in hiding, accumulating power and preparing to attack. It was rumored in the heaven realm that if Bailey Fengqian could break through to the 8th rank, even the Snow Emperor would not be his match. Nie Tian didn't know if the rumors were true, but he could sense that the Illusion Emperor's aura wasn't inferior to the Snow Empress. Lord Illusion Emperor, you must be joking. Tiangong looked at Bailey Fengqian with a faint smile. Ghost Scar, I didn't expect you to be here too. Are you with Lord Tiangong? Bailey Fengqian nodded slightly, then raised his eyebrows and looked at Ghost Scar. We came to the Purgatory Mountain to look for something. Ghost Scar didn't hide anything and said directly. Don't tell me you are also looking for the demon fire? Bailey Fengqian was even more direct. He smiled faintly and asked. Ghost Scar was surprised, then he nodded his head. What a coincidence. We are also looking for the demon fire. The Illusion Emperor smiled faintly. Zhuo Qianqian's figure appeared beside him. It's you. Zhuo Qianqian saw Nie Tian at first glance and was extremely shocked. He said to Bailey Fengqian, Teacher, the person I told you about is him. Nie Tian. The Illusion Emperor's gaze fell on Nie Tian. He nodded with a smile and said with a strange expression, I heard that you have reincarnated. I didn't expect it to be true. Bailey Fengqian had already noticed Nie Tian's existence. He just didn't point it out. Lord Illusion Emperor, we meet again. Nie Tian smiled faintly. It wasn't strange that Bailey Fengqian could recognize him. Many people in the heaven realm knew that Nie Tian had reincarnated. It was very normal for Bailey Fengqian to hear some news. Teacher, do you know him? Zhuo Qianqian was stunned. He didn't expect Nie Tian and Bailey Fengqian to know each other. The Illusion Emperor smiled faintly and said, Qianqian, this person was the number 1 in the heaven realm. He is my old friend. How could I not know him? Zhuo Qianqian's expression stiffened. He thought of something and said, Are you that Nie Tian? Zhuo Qianqian wasn't stupid. When he heard the title of the number 1 in the heaven realm, he immediately understood. The Illusion Emperor nodded faintly and looked at Nie Tian. He seemed to be sensing his strength. He smiled faintly and said, Nie Tian, I already know about what happened in the ancient sword tomb. I thank you on behalf of Qianqian. The Illusion Emperor already knew about what happened between Nie Tian and Zhuo Qianqian. It was all thanks to Nie Tian that Zhuqianshen was able to survive in the ancient sword tomb. Lord Illusion Emperor, you are exaggerating, Nie Tian nodded and said with a smile, Zhuqianshen and I are just helping each other. Then, after exchanging some pleasantries, they finally entered the main topic. Lord Tiangong, which demonic fire are you looking for in the Purgatory Mountain? Bailey Fengchen asked directly. The sixth demonic fire, the Twilight Blade Flame. Tiangong smiled faintly and said, This demonic fire is very strange. I'm afraid Lord Illusion Emperor won't be interested in it, right? Fortunately, I am looking for the fourth demonic fire, the first nightmare. The Illusion Emperor smiled faintly and heaved a sigh of relief. If he and Tiangong were looking for the same demonic fire, then it would be really awkward. Even if they were chatting and laughing right now, after a conflict they might still fight. Bailey Fengchen was confident in his own strength, but Ghost Scar and Nie Tian were not easy to deal with. Once they started fighting, it would be hard to tell who would win. The fourth demonic fire? Nie Tian was stunned and said in surprise, Could it be that the fourth demonic fire is also in the Purgatory Mountain? The fourth demonic fire, the first nightmare, and the sixth demonic fire, the Twilight Blade Flame. Two demonic fires appearing in the Purgatory Mountain at the same time was too much of a coincidence. Yes. The Illusion Emperor nodded. A demonic fire diagram appeared in his hand and he opened it. Nie Tian and the others looked at it. The demonic fire diagram showed the location of the Purgatory Mountain, and it was in the deepest part of the Purgatory Mountain. Tiangong looked at the demonic fire diagram in front of him and was suddenly stunned. He let out a strange cry and said, It can't be so coincidental, right? And Nie Tian and the others were stunned when they saw Tiangong's reaction. Tiangong laughed inexplicably and then took out the demonic fire diagram of the sixth demonic fire, opening it in front of everyone. Everyone compared the two demonic fire diagrams and gasped at the same time. They were speechless for a long time. The two demonic fire diagrams actually showed the same location. The fourth and sixth demonic fires actually appeared in the same location of the Purgatory Mountain. This was too strange. After a long time, everyone calmed down, but their eyes still didn't leave the two demonic fire diagrams. The two flashes were very close to each other, and they almost overlap. They were at most several hundred meters apart. Demonic fires were originally erratic things that scattered between heaven and earth. Right now, there were actually two demonic fires in the same location. This was a bit abnormal. Chapter 1303. Just when everyone was wondering why the two demonic flames appeared at the same place, Bailey Fengchen's expression suddenly changed as if he had discovered something. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He extended his divine sense and his expression also darkened. He was extremely shocked. Two more big shots have arrived. Tiangong immediately sensed something and cried out in surprise. Ghost Scar and Zhuqianshen were both surprised. Their perception was not strong enough, so they did not sense anyone's arrival. It's Dan Emperor and Jian Xie. Illusion Emperor frowned and said in a deep voice. Tiangong was right. Both of them were important figures. They were Dan Emperor Chen Xinwen and Jian Xie Duguanai. One of them was one of the 9 emperors, while the other was one of the 5 peak. They were both peak figures in the heaven realm. It was not normal for them to suddenly appear here. Chen Xinwen and Duguanai, what are they doing here? Ghost Scar asked in surprise. Even his voice changed slightly. So many important figures have come to this small Purgatory Mountain at the same time. Interesting. Nie Tian's lips curled up slightly as he said in a playful tone. It seemed like something big was going to happen in Purgatory Mountain. Important figures came one after another. After a while, 2 figures appeared. One was a slightly chubby middle-aged man with a humble face, the other was a haggard swordsman. The two of them standing together was quite comical. Sure enough, it's Chen Xinwen and Duguanai. Upon seeing the two of them, Nie Tian immediately recognized them, and an indescribable, cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. In his previous life, his impression of Chen Xinwen was quite good. The latter was the president of the Alchemist Guild, while he was an elder of the guild. But now, he felt that Chen Xinwen was a hypocrite. Chen Jini was also an elder of the Alchemist Guild. He was harmed so badly by Luo Chenhun, yet Chen Xinwen did not care about it. This was something that Nie Tian could not accept. More importantly, Nie Tian suspected that the person who asked Sui Qianchen to kill him was Chen Xinwen. However, he didn't recall any enmity between him and Chen Xinwen, unless Chen Xinwen was also with the Snow Empress. At this time, Nie Tian specially observed Sui Qianchen's expression and found that when the latter saw Chen Xinwen, his expression was obviously different. With just this reaction, Nie Tian was certain that the person who had sent Sui Qianchen to kill him was Chen Xinwen. Lord Illusion Emperor, Lord Heavenly Designer, Lord Sword Slaughterer. When Chen Xinwen arrived, he was surprised to see Bailey Fengchen and the others. Then, he smiled modestly and said, "It's so lively here. So many big shots have gathered. Are they all here for the demonic fire?" In the next moment, Duguni's figure arrived and his evil eyes swept across the crowd. When Duguni's eyes saw Nie Tian, he was obviously stunned for a moment. Then, he raised his eyebrows and laughed. "The reincarnated Lord Aojian is also here. It's really lively now." The moment Duguanai saw Nie Tian, he realized his identity and directly pointed it out. He was very arrogant. Huh! Chen Xinwen was suddenly stunned. Then, he looked at Nie Tian and immediately confirmed the latter's identity. There was a trace of coldness in his eyes that flashed for a moment. Then, he smiled and said, "I really didn't expect that Elder Nie Tian was actually reborn." Compared to others, Chen Xinwen was more willing to call Nie Tian as elder. This way, it would appear that his status as the Alchemists Association's chairman was higher than Nie Tian's. Lord Alchemy Emperor, Brother Dugu, long time no see. Nie Tian did not put on an act either. He directly took a step forward and greeted with a calm look. Since the other party already knew his identity, there was no need to be secretive. Sensing Chen Xinwen's coldness just now, Nie Tian was even more convinced of his guess. "I didn't expect that Brother Nie returned to the Heaven Realm not long ago, and your strength advanced to the 8th level Heavenly Emperor so quickly. It seems like your combat power is already close to the peak of the Heaven Realm. I'm looking forward to it." Duguanai smiled sinisterly and said rather playfully. Duguanai remembered that when Nie Tian was competing in Sword Dao, his strength was still very weak and could not enter his discerning eyes at all. He did not expect that after a few months, he was actually close to the peak already. Truly terrifying. "Brother Dugu is too kind." Nie Tian replied indifferently and did not avoid Duguni's gaze. Then he said, "Lord Alchemy Emperor and Brother Dugu appearing together in Purgatory Mountain, you also came for the Fiend Fire?" Duguanai already said just now, they came for the Fiend Fire. Nie Tian was puzzled in his heart, not knowing which Fiend Fire Duguanai came for. If a third Fiend Fire appeared in Purgatory Mountain, that would really be strange. "I came to accompany Lord Alchemy Emperor." Duguanai laughed and then looked at Chen Xinwen. He really did not know which Fiend Fire Chen Xinwen came for. Chen Xinwen thought for a bit but did not avoid it and said coolly, "I came for the 5th Fiend Fire, Spacetime Doomsday." The 5th Fiend Fire. When Nie Tian and the rest heard Chen Xinwen's words, they were immediately stunned. A third Fiend Fire really appeared. Chen Xinwen saw that everyone's reaction was not right and could not help but become cautious. He said in astonishment, "You also came for the 5th Fiend Fire?" "No." Tian Gong and Bailey Fengchen shook their heads at the same time. It was precisely because it was not that they were so shocked. First it was the 6th Fiend Fire, then the 4th Fiend Fire, and now there was the 5th Fiend Fire. What was going on with these Fiend Fires? Why would they suddenly gather in Purgatory Mountain? Lord Alchemy Emperor, could you show us your fiend fire diagram? Tiangong took a step forward and said with a bit of nervousness. Chen Xinwen hesitated, but he still took it out and spread it out in front of everyone. Everyone came forward to take a look, and their expressions immediately froze. They could not say a word for a long time. The position of the fifth fiend fire diagram was actually exactly the same as the other two diagrams, almost at the same place. Everyone, what is wrong with you? Chen Xinwen saw everyone's reaction and could not help but frown, his face full of confusion. Tiangong and Bailey Fengchen did not speak, but took out their respective fiend fire diagrams and spread them out. When the three fiend fire diagrams were placed together, the contrast was even more obvious. The three fiend fires were at the same place, at most a few hundred meters apart. Chen Xinwen saw this scene and was also stunned, his entire body petrified. He was an alchemist, so of course he knew the fiend fires were strange. They had always been erratic. At this moment, three fiend fires appeared on Purgatory Mountain at the same place. This undoubtedly meant that there was something special in that place that attracted the fiend fires. He is looking for the fifth fiend fire, Spacetime Doomsday. This is a fiend fire that specializes in devouring spacetime. At this moment, Nie Tian looked at Chen Xinwen with a slightly strange expression. He knew that Chen Xinwen was not only an alchemist, but also an extremely accomplished spirit formation master, and an extremely rare spacetime spirit formation master. Spacetime Doomsday was an extremely terrifying fiend fire that could devour all kinds of spacetime, including spacetime enchantments and spacetime seals. Chen Xinwen obviously wanted to fuse with the Spacetime Doomsday to raise his spirit formation master level. If he could fuse with the Spacetime Doomsday, he would definitely be able to break the planar restriction of the Heaven Realm's God Realm and enter the upper realms under the condition that he did not break through to the Divine Realm. However, Nie Tian did not think too much about it. The most important thing now was still the present. Chapter 1304. Standing high up in the sky, Nie Tian and the others all had strange expressions on their faces. The fourth demonic fire, the first nightmare, the fifth demonic fire, the spacetime apocalypse, the sixth demonic fire, the dusk blade flame, these three demonic fires appeared at the same place in Purgatory Mountain. This was extremely unusual. Great Pill Emperor, I heard that you have many demonic fire diagrams. Why don't you take them out and see if the other demonic fires also appeared in Purgatory Mountain? Suddenly, Nie Tian thought of something and said to Chen Xinwen. Although he was already on guard against Chen Xinwen, the two sides did not completely fall out. They could still talk normally. Nie Tian vaguely felt that something big must have happened in Purgatory Mountain. Otherwise, there was no way so many demonic fires would gather together. Perhaps there were more than 3 demonic fires gathered in Purgatory Mountain. Chen Xinwen was the president of the Alchemist Guild. He loved to collect demonic fire diagrams, so he had quite a few. As long as he took them out, he would know. I do have many demonic fire diagrams, but I don't have them with me. Chen Xinwen shook his head with a smile. He could not help but look at Sui Qianchen. The fourth demonic fire diagram in Illusion Emperor's Bailey Fengchen's hands was obtained from him. Nie Tian's guess was right. The one who asked Sui Qianchen to kill him was Chen Xinwen. There was no enmity between Nie Tian and Chen Xinwen, yet the latter wanted to kill him. It was definitely related to Snow Emperor or Luo Chunhan. Everyone felt a bit awkward. Since Chen Xinwen did not have any other demonic fire diagrams, they could not see anything. They could only wait until they entered Purgatory Mountain and personally investigate. Since it is like this trip to Purgatory Mountain might not be so easy. Why don't we travel together? Tiangong laughed and suggested. All right. The Illusion Emperor did not have any objections and nodded in agreement. Duguanai looked at Chen Xinwen. This time, he accompanied the latter, so he would naturally listen to the latter's arrangements. Personally, he was very willing to travel with others, especially Nye Tian. Perhaps the two of them could even exchange blows. Nye Tian, since the Azura's Gate Overlord can't kill you, I'll have to do it myself. I'm looking forward to seeing how much you've grown. Dugunai glanced at Nye Tian as he spoke darkly in his heart. Of course, Nye Tian could sense Dugunai's hostility, but he pretended not to see it and didn't care. Dugunai was indeed very strong, but the current Nye Tian was not weak either, especially after his sword Absolute Heaven Slash recovered to its peak. He was confident that he could fight against an expert like Dugunai. After giving the matter some thought, Chen Xinwen nodded in agreement. All right. Since Lord Heavenly Designer has said so, how could this guild leader refuse his kind intentions? He also felt that entering Purgatory Mountain this time might not be that easy. Very good. Since no one has any objections, let's go in. Heavenly Designer laughed. He took a step forward and was the first to enter Purgatory Mountain. The others followed closely. Several figures retracted their auras and landed in the mountain range. The temporary lineup of Nye Tian and the others could be said to be abnormal. 2 of the 9 emperors, 3 of the 5 peaks, the number 1 weapon refiner, and the youngest rank 6 illusionist. It was truly terrifying. Right now, Nye Tian was a little puzzled. Bailey Fengchen was searching for the 4th demon fire. Was he going to fuse with it himself, or was he going to let Zhuo Qianchen do it? Bailey Fengchen was a rank 7 illusionist, while Zhuo Qianchen was a rank 6 illusionist. If either of them fused with the 4th demon fire, their illusionist rank would increase. However, if Bailey Fengchen became a rank 8 illusionist, perhaps even the Snow Empress would not be his opponent. Everyone entered Purgatory Mountain and immediately became vigilant. Nye Tian, Heavenly Designer, and Chen Xinwen's perception abilities were extremely powerful. When their divine senses spread out, they could see even the slightest movement within 100,000 meters. Purgatory Mountain is too close to Sky's Edge Purgatory, enduring the roasting of soul refinement flames all year round. Even the trees carry a strange fire attribute aura. Nye Tian looked at the surrounding giant black trees and said inwardly. The trees of Purgatory Mountain were all a dirty black color. Moreover, they carried a scorched smell that was extremely pungent. Han Fei, Zhang Jianqing, Master will definitely save you. Nye Tian vowed inwardly that he would definitely save his 2 disciples. The trees of Purgatory Mountain were already like this. Han Fei and Zhang Jianqing had to endure the roasting of soul refinement flames all year round. It was unknown what kind of state they would be in. No matter what, Nye Tian would definitely save the 2 of them. Everyone carefully walked forward. Even though they were powerful, they were still extremely cautious. Every single one of them had a premonition that something terrifying was currently happening in Purgatory Mountain. Everyone slowly approached the belly of Purgatory Mountain. The aura of the devil flames became stronger and stronger. The surrounding black trees were all like monsters, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, as if they were slowly becoming berserk. Everyone, be careful. The aura of the devil flames is becoming stronger and stronger. The surrounding aura is a bit off. Heavenly Designer's brows furrowed slightly. He couldn't help but retreat behind Ghost Scar and warn everyone. Bailey Fengchen indicated for Zhuo Qianchen to stand at the center of everyone. This type of position was relatively safer. Zhuo Qianchen and Heavenly Designer were the weakest of the 7. The other 5 were all at the peak of their strength. Chen Xinwen was a pill emperor. His strength was a bit inferior to the other peak experts, but his perception abilities were extremely powerful, so he wasn't that scared. Dugunai and Ghost Scar walked at the very front. Nye Tian and Bailey Fengchen were at the very back. Even though the 7 of them each had their own ulterior motives, their teamwork was still extremely good. The further they went, the more intense the aura of the devil flames became for Nye Tian. That kind of blazing aura actually made it hard for him to breathe. Heavenly Designer and Zhuqianshan's expressions were a bit ugly, as if they were about to suffocate. Careful! At this time, Nie Tian suddenly felt a violent aura appear. He couldn't help but cry out. Something is coming! Heavenly Designer and Chen Xinwen also felt it and exclaimed at the same time. Qianshan, no matter what happens, stay behind me. Bailey Fengchen also felt something was wrong and said with a heavy voice. Among the 7, 5 were peak experts, yet they were so nervous at this time. If outsiders saw this, they would definitely be extremely shocked. It's coming! Nie Tian's divine sense spread out completely, activating the holographic divine glyph. A holographic projection appeared in his mind, and he actually saw a terrifying ball of flame madly rushing towards them. Come at me! Duguanai snickered, the corner of his mouth raised in a cold and austere manner. This person was ruthless and bloodthirsty. He didn't fear anything. Boom! The next moment, a crimson sea of fire appeared in front of them like a huge curtain of fire. Everywhere it passed, the trees and rocks were all turned into ashes. Hee. In an instant, ear-piercing screams came from the sea of fire. It was extremely terrifying, and it was extremely strange and mournful. Kill! Duguanai didn't even look at it. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he spat out a word. His entire body was full of sword essence, and a chilling sword shadow whizzed out, rushing towards the sea of fire. Chapter 1305. This. Seeing the scene in front of them, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone was clear about Duguanai's strength. His full-powered strike was actually directly swallowed by the sea of fire in front of him. This was too strange. GGG. Right at this moment, the sea of fire spread over rapidly. The ear-piercing sound seemed to be right beside their ears, making them feel uneasy. It's the fire-wing bloodbats! Nie Tian was still considered calm. A beam of starlight flashed in his eyes, and he finally saw the true appearance of that sea of fire. It was actually formed by countless fire-wing bloodbat. Fire-wing bloodbats, one of the 10 great savage beasts of the heaven realm. The fire-wing bloodbats were even more terrifying than the earthen monitor lizard. Although they were only several meters in size, not even comparable to low-level spirit beasts, they would always appear in thousands. Moreover, their bodies were extremely tough, even stronger than ordinary 9th-level heavenly emperor martial artists. With so many fire-wing bloodbats gathered together, under the soaring aura, even a full-powered strike from a powerhouse like Dugu and I could not hurt them. Fire-wing bloodbats! Everyone was stunned and their hearts trembled. Why would they appear here? Tiangong and the rest had also come to Purgatory Mountain before, but they had never heard of fire-wing bloodbats appearing in Purgatory Mountain. They must have come together with the demonic fire. Nie Tian said, then said loudly, "Everyone be careful. Don't let the fire-wing bloodbats break up the formation." Although the 7 of them were very strong, if they were broken up by the fire-wing bloodbats, even peak powerhouses would find it hard to resist. Everyone's hearts trembled, and they all became nervous. Nie Tian and the other 4 stood at the outermost, enveloping Zhuqianshan and Tiangong. The 5's aura rose at the same time, merging into a visible essence energy barrier. The combined aura of 5 peak powerhouses was enough to instantly kill other peak powerhouses. Be careful! At this time, the fire-wing bloodbats charged over. Nie Tian shouted, and the aura around him skyrocketed again. A terrifying sword aura bloomed. At this moment, Nie Tian could clearly see the appearance of the fiery-winged vampire bat. Its body was 3 to 4 meters long, and its black, fleshy wings were burning with terrifying flames. There was a scarlet ball of fire in its throat, which was extremely frightening. Boom! In the next moment, the sea of fire formed by the flame-winged bloodbats charged over. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out in the air as waves of fiery power smashed against the barrier formed by the 5 of them. Fortunately, Nie Tian and the other 4 were all at the peak realm. Even if they had to face the attack of the flame-winged blood bats head-on, they could still withstand it. However, after these flaming vampire bats charged over, they had no intention of leaving. Instead, they surrounded Nie Tian and the others, spitting out waves of fire from their mouths as they attacked the Yuan Qi barrier. Oh no! Nie Tian suddenly realized something and exclaimed, "The flaming vampire bats are targeting us. They won't leave until they kill us." He had thought that these flaming vampire bats would leave after charging over, but he did not expect them to surround them and attack them non-stop. These flaming blood bats seem to be under someone's control. They are very violent, and the Yuan Qi barrier won't last much longer. We have to get rid of these blood bats. Bailey Fengchen could see that the flaming vampire bats' eyes were scarlet red, and they were in a berserk state. It was clear that they were being controlled. The Yuan Qi barrier could still resist the attacks of the flaming vampire bats, but after a long time, Nie Tian and the others Yuan Qi would be exhausted, and they would die. What kind of person is so terrifying that he can control so many flaming vampire bats? Chen Xinwen roared angrily. He had clearly sensed that something was wrong. The first nightmare. Bailey Fengchen was stunned, and he blurted out a name. Even Bailey Fengchen himself could not control so many flaming vampire bats at the same time. If there was someone with such a powerful control ability, it would be the fourth devil fire, the first nightmare. The first nightmare could devour the consciousness and soul of martial artists, and it could also control martial artists. These flaming vampire bats were definitely under the first nightmare's control, which was why they were so violent. Those devil fires know that we are coming. Bailey Fengchen understood everything, and his voice trembled a bit. It seemed like the devil fires of Purgatory Mountain already knew that human martial artists were coming, so they sent the flaming vampire bats out first. Kill them all. Duguanai did not think too much. He let out a deep roar, and a terrifying sword aura was released from his body. It soared into the sky, and a sharp and austere aura spread out. Miserable screams immediately came from the space. Even the flaming vampire bats could not resist Duguani's sword aura at such a close distance. When Ghost Scar saw this, a black heavy sword appeared in his hand. It was his Yuan soul sword, Ghost Knight Rain. Boom! Ghost Scar swung his sword, and the Ghost Knight's sword aura was like a blade of the night, violently rushing out. Under the black sword's shadow, countless flaming vampire bats were directly smashed into pieces. Nie Tian frowned, and the absolute heaven slash appeared in his hand. The power of Emperor Light fused with the terrifying sword aura, and it was released with a loud rumble. The soaring sword aura rushed out like a wild beast, tearing countless flaming vampire bats apart. Bailey Fengchen and Chen Xinwen also attacked at this time, each killing countless flaming vampire bat. The five of them were at the peak of their strength, so it was not too difficult to deal with these flaming vampire bats. However, if they killed all the flaming vampire bats, the five of them would most likely use up most of their Yuan energy. Their Yuan energy had already been used up before they even saw the demonic fire. This was not a good thing. Boom! At this time, a terrifying flame suddenly rose from the depths of Purgatory Mountain. It soared into the sky, and condensed into a terrifying flaming ghost face in midair. It was extremely terrifying. Almost at the same time, the flaming vampire bats seemed to have been summoned. They actually directly gave up on Nie Tian and the others, and flapped their wings, flying towards the flaming ghost face in the sky. In just a blink of an eye, all the flaming vampire bats disappeared like the wind, leaving behind countless flaming vampire bats' corpses on the ground. It was a bloody scene. What happened? The flaming vampire bats suddenly left, and everyone was confused. They did not know what happened. The first nightmare must have sent some kind of message to the flaming vampire bats, so they left. Bailey Fengchen frowned, his face full of shock. He had heard before that the first nightmare was extremely terrifying, able to evoke the greatest fear in one's heart. However, He did not expect the first nightmare's control ability to be so powerful. Lord Illusion Emperor is saying that the flaming ghost face in the sky is the first nightmare? Nie Tian frowned. He calmed down and asked with a heavy voice. Yes. Bailey Fengchen nodded. He looked at the flaming ghost face in the sky and said, I can sense the first nightmare's aura, it is definitely true. This. Everyone looked at Bailey Fengchen, and all of them sucked in a breath of cold air. This trip to Purgatory Mountain was even more difficult than they had imagined. Just the first nightmare alone had already made them flustered. If other demonic fires appeared, what would the consequences be? The strangest thing was, why did so many demonic fires gather in Purgatory Mountain? Everyone, are we still going to continue forward? Seeing everyone's reaction, Heavenly Worker couldn't help but ask. Of course we are going to continue forward. Since we have already come here, how could we just leave like this? Duguanai chuckled, his expression actually sinister. Chapter 1306. A cold smile hung on the corners of Duguanai's mouth, but he said inwardly, the sixth demonic fire, Dusk Blade Heart Flame, is rumored to contain sword intent. If I obtain it, I will definitely be able to reach an even higher peak. Duguanai was different from Nie Tian. He never had any misgivings when doing things. He did not even put his own teacher, Old Man Tianhuang, in his eyes, and even framed Tianhuang Palace, so why would he be polite with Ghost Scar? He had to obtain the Dusk Blade Heart Flame. Ghost Scar and Tiangong looked at each other. They already understood Duguanai's meaning, but they could not expose it. No matter what, the seven of them were still companions. As for when they would break up, it would depend on when the demonic fire appeared. I am willing to go forward. Ghost Scar's eyes flickered under the black robe as he said indifferently. He was not afraid that Duguanai wanted to snatch the Dusk Blade Heart Flame. He, Ghost Scar, was not a pushover. If he was forced into a corner, even if he had to fight to the death with Duguanai, he would not hesitate. Duguanai, Ghost Scar, if the two of you fight, who knows who will win? Nie Tian glanced at Duguanai and Ghost Scar, guessing the contest between the two. He smiled inwardly. Duguanai and Ghost Scar were both at the peak of the sword path. If the two of them fought to the death, it would be hard to say who would win. I also agree to go forward. Chen Xinwen laughed and said indifferently. Nie Tian nodded in agreement. He did not come for the demonic fire, but the scene in front of him was too strange. He really wanted to see what was going on. Okay. Tiangong faintly smiled and said, since everyone has agreed, then let us continue forward. Then, everyone rested for a bit, then continued to advance towards the depths of Purgatory Mountain. As they went deeper, the aura of the demonic fire became stronger and stronger. The air was filled with the aura of flames, as if the void was about to be ignited. As Nie Tian walked forward, he carefully scanned his surroundings with his senses. The flaming vampire bats were too terrifying. Fortunately, Nie Tian and the others were strong enough. Otherwise, they would have been reduced to ashes. A moment later, everyone noticed that the aura around them had become more and more strange, and they couldn't help but frown. The air was filled with an extremely mysterious aura. It was as if the environment had changed. The scenery in front of them became verdant and full of vitality. Something's wrong. Nie Tian's holographic divine runes were activated, but the image on the holographic projection was completely different from the scene in front of him. He couldn't help but exclaim, Almost at the same time, Bailey Fengchen also felt that something was wrong. He frowned and suddenly realized something. He said in surprise, we've fallen into an illusion. Illusory realm. Everyone was stunned, and their expressions turned sluggish. Bailey Fengchen was known as the Illusion Emperor. Even he had unknowingly fallen into an illusion. This was too terrifying. The first nightmare. Bailey Fengchen frowned and his expression darkened. He knew that the first nightmare must have created this illusion. The first nightmare was too terrifying. It could actually create such a realistic illusion. Bailey Fengchen was already a rank 7 illusionist, but he couldn't create such a complicated illusion. Everyone, be careful. Hold your breath. Don't let the aura around you affect your mind. Don't absorb any energy. Bailey Fengchen calmed down a little and said in a deep voice, "The first nightmare could devour a cultivator's divine sense and original spirit. Right now, everyone was in an illusion. If they weren't careful, their minds would be devoured and they would become zombies." Everyone was shocked. They restrained their aura and held their breath. They didn't dare to be careless. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on Bailey Fengchen. Nie Tian was no exception. Although Nie Tian could see that this was an illusion, he didn't know how to break it. Bailey Fengchen closed his eyes slightly as if he was sensing something. Soon, beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his face became slightly pale. A moment later, Bailey Fengchen opened his eyes. He looked even more frightened. He turned to look at Zhuo Qianchen and said in a deep voice, "Qianchen, release the nightmare devil mark." An illusion was actually an illusion array. Like all spiritual arrays, in order to break it, one must first find the illusion eye. Just now, Bailey Fengchen was trying to sense the illusion eye, but he couldn't find it. The illusion created by the first nightmare was too terrifying. The illusion eye was hidden very deeply, and it was very difficult to find. The more it was like this, the more terrifying it was. Zhuo Qianchen nodded heavily. His face was also covered in sweat. He took a step forward. His body released a 7-colored light that bloomed in the void. At this time, he was using the nightmare devil mark in his body. It was an extremely terrifying illusion seal. Zhuo Qianchen's talent in illusion was so high because of the nightmare devil mark in his body. The nightmare devil mark was slowly released. The 7-colored light slowly enveloped the surroundings. The surrounding scenery slowly changed. It was actually a boundary between reality and illusion, giving people an extremely dreamy feeling. Bailey Fengchen couldn't sense the illusion eye. He could only use Zhuo Qianchen's nightmare devil mark. "It's there," Bailey Fengchen carefully sensed. At a certain moment, his eyes suddenly trembled. He locked onto a huge tree that was at least 1,000 meters tall and said in surprise. Everyone was startled. They immediately looked at the huge tree. It was verdant and lush, and its branches were luxuriant. It was constantly releasing an enormous life aura. This huge tree is indeed the illusion eye. Nie Tian's holographic divine rune locked onto the huge tree. On the holographic projection, waves of illusion power were released from the huge tree. Zhuo Qianchen's nightmare devil mark was indeed powerful. The illusion created by the first nightmare was also affected by the devil mark, and revealed its true appearance. "Lord Illusion Emperor, what do we do now?" Chen Xinwen was slightly anxious. He looked at Bailey Fengchen and asked nervously. "Destroy this huge tree, and the illusion will break." Bailey Fengchen smiled faintly and said calmly, "All right." Duguanai smiled coldly. The long sword in his hand flickered with a cold light. It was his primordial soul, Illusion 100 transformations. Without hesitation, Duguanai directly slashed out. The enormous sword intent condensed into a vast sword shadow, directly bombarding the huge tree in front of him. Bang! However, just as the sword shadow was about to bombard the huge tree, it seemed to have hit an invisible barrier. With a muffled sound, it directly shattered. Everyone was stunned. They were extremely astonished. With Duguanai's strength, he could easily shatter a mountain with one sword strike. 1,000 meters tall tree was simply child's play to him. It's a space-time boundary. At this moment, Chen Xinwen suddenly realized something. His eyes suddenly darkened and he shouted in surprise. Everyone was stunned. Their expressions instantly became complicated. Although the first nightmare could devour a martial artist's soul and primordial soul, it definitely did not have the ability to create a space-time boundary. Space-time doomsday. The next moment, everyone thought of something. Their eyes trembled violently, and they all exclaimed a name in unison. Spacetime Doomsday. It must be a space-time boundary formed by the space-time Doomsday to protect the illusion eye. The first nightmare and the space-time Doomsday, the two great demonic flames actually joined hands. The demonic flames and demonic flames joined hands. Chapter 1307. What's going on? Everyone heard a loud rumble coming from above the void above their heads, and could not help raising their heads. They actually saw over a dozen enormous crimson-red sword shadows descend from the sky, landing with a loud bang, like enormous pillars, stabbing deeply into the ground. The enormous crimson-red sword shadows reflected a stretch of the sky, akin to a setting sun falling, beautiful purple and red until it made people's hearts tremble. This is... Everyone drew a cold breath in unison, their faces incomparably shocked. A name appeared in their minds: Dusk Blade Heart Flame. That was right, it was the Six Fiend Fire, Dusk Blade Heart Flame. The first nightmare, Spacetime Doomsday, Dusk Blade Heart Flame, three great fiend fires actually joined hands, trapping Nye and the rest in an illusionary realm plus sword formation. How is this possible? The scene that suddenly happened made everyone astonished to the extreme, crying out in shock. The fiend fires originally did not have much communication, and were even at odds with each other. How could they possibly join hands? This was too bizarre. Behind the fiend fires joining hands, there must be a very horrifying thing manipulating. Nye was still considered calm as he said solemnly, but his expression was very ugly. Even he was also very nervous facing the current situation. The power contained within the fiend fires was indescribable. If someone was manipulating them from behind, that was really too terrifying. Just what in the world was it so powerful to actually be able to control the three great fiend fires and make them join hands? This is too bizarre. Heavenly Gong drew a cold breath, his complexion already ashen as white as paper. The powerful pressure released by the sword formation made him somewhat unable to withstand it. When Ghost Scar saw the situation, he released a surge of sword intent from within his body, turning into a protective shield, protecting Heavenly Gong. Bailey Fengchen also used similar means to protect Zhuo Qianchen. Dusk Blade Heart Flame, the Six Fiend Fire, a strange fire containing a powerful sword intent. The sword formation condensed from it was abnormally powerful. Even ordinary 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would find it very hard to withstand such sword momentum pressure too. The first nightmare constructed an illusionary realm. Spacetime Doomsday protected the illusionary eye. Dusk Blade Heart Flame condensed into a sword formation. The cooperation between the three great fiend fires was seamless, simply perfect. What's going on here? Duguni's personality was ruthless. He roared in a low voice, his eyes quivering, revealing ice-cold killing intent. Among the people present, the calmest were Nye and Ghost Scar. Nye had lived 2 lives and had experienced countless life and death situations. He was able to remain calm in the face of the strange demonic flames. Perhaps because Ghost Scar used to be an assassin, he was very calm. His face was hidden under the black robe. He did not say a word or even make a sound. Nye frowned slightly, and his expression became complicated. He knew that Duguni's violent temper might be related to the first nightmare. His mind was affected by the first nightmare. This can't go on. I must find a way to break through the sword formation and destroy the illusion. Nye spoke in a low voice. The holographic divine imprints started to circulate, and a formless mental energy gushed out from the sword formation in the surroundings, wanting to find the core of the sword formation. The sword formation formed by the Dusk Blade Heart Flame was formed by 18 crimson sword shadows. The space was filled with a terrifying blood-red sword intent that seemed to be able to tear everything apart. Nye circulated the holographic divine imprints and sensed the crimson sword shadows. At this moment, the 18 sword shadows suddenly revolved crazily. Waves of terrifying sword intent shot out, turning into crimson sword shadows that filled the sky, pouncing towards Nietian and the others. "Be careful!" Nietian screamed. His entire body released sword intent, and the sword absolute heaven slash let out a clanging sound, condensing into a sword shield, blocking the attack of the crimson sword shadows. The others also started to defend, preventing the sword shadows from approaching. However, at this time, the sword formation revolved faster and faster. More and more powerful sword shadows rushed over, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was like a crimson curtain rolling out. "Kill!" Duguanai roared. The 100 demonic forms attacked, and a black sword shadow directly broke through the crimson curtain, bombarding the sword formation. Rumble! A huge explosion sounded out. The entire sword formation shook violently, and then it actually swallowed the black sword shadow. Crap! Nietian's expression turned grim when he saw this, and he said in a loud voice, "Don't attack the sword formation. This sword formation is capable of absorbing sword intent. If you're unable to break it, then it will only make it even stronger." Nietian discovered that after Duguanai's sword slashed out, not only did the sword formation not weaken, it became stronger instead. Very clearly, the sword formation absorbed the power of Duguanai's one sword and turned it into its own. When Duguanai heard Nietian's reminder, his aura converged, and he no longer dared to attack casually. "Found it!" At this time, Nietian's eyes trembled slightly, flashing a hint of surprise. His eyes locked on one of the 18 sword shadows, and he exclaimed, "The eye of the formation is it!" Nietian's holographic divine glyphs detected that the eye of the sword formation was one of the 18 sword shadows. This was the weakest point of the entire sword formation. If he wanted to break the sword formation, he must destroy the sword shadow of the formation eye. At this time, the sword formation seemed to have a life of its own. It discovered something, and the 18 sword shadows quickly changed. The speed was extremely fast, dazzling people's eyes. "Oh no!" Nietian frowned. In just an instant, he actually lost the sword shadow of the formation eye. The speed of the 18 sword shadows was too fast. It was obviously disrupting his perception. "Ghost Scar, cover me!" Nietian's face darkened. His figure moved, and he rushed out directly. He knew that in order to thoroughly find the sword shadow of the formation eye, he must leave something on that sword shadow. Ghost Scar nodded, and his sword blasted out, turning into countless sword shadows that wrapped around Nietian. Nietian was in midair. Holographic divine glyphs surged out, like invisible tentacles, and quickly locked on to the sword shadow of the formation eye. This time, Nietian's full attention was on the sword shadow of the formation eye. His body surged with the power of stars, and a spirit vortex appeared on his forehead. It was one of the 3 starry sky taboo techniques, Scar of Star Dream. "Let's see where you can run to now." The corner of Nietian's mouth raised into a cold smile. A spirit vortex suddenly gushed out from his forehead, and directly descended on the sword shadow of the formation eye. The sword shadow of the formation eye was wrapped by the spirit vortex, and it could not escape for a while. No matter how the 18 sword shadows changed, the sword shadow of the formation eye was still very obvious. "Ghost Scar. The sword shadow that I marked is the sword formation eye. Destroy it." Nietian's figure moved, and under the attack of thousands of scarlet sword shadows, he appeared very agile. If he personally destroyed the sword formation eye, he could directly force out the Twilight Blade's heart flame. At that time, it would be the best time to fuse with the Twilight Blade's heart flame. However, Nietian did not do so, because he said that he would not fight with Ghost Scar for the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Ghost Scar immediately understood Nietian's meaning. His eyes that were hidden in the darkness trembled slightly. His figure moved, and Ghost Knight Rain attacked. The huge sword intent turned into a rain of sword shadows, and bombarded the sword shadow of the formation I. Let me. However, at this time, Duguni's voice suddenly sounded. His figure was not the slightest bit slower than Ghost Scar. The Void 100 Transformations sword stabbed towards the sword shadow of the formation I, and the mighty sword shadow exploded out like a giant snake. Chapter 1308. Duguni's sudden attack caught Nyetian off guard. His brows slightly furrowed. He wanted to help Ghost Scar, but his entire body was shrouded by endless scarlet sword images. If he forcefully attacked, it would definitely make the sword formation even more terrifying. When the others saw Ghost Scar and Duguanai attacking at the same time, they all understood that the two were fighting for the Twilight Blade Heart Flame. Everyone's gazes became scorching hot. Looking at the two figures in the sky, they did not dare to blink, afraid of missing any scene. Boom! Crack! Ghost Scar and Dugu and I bombarded the sword images in the eye of the formation at practically the same time. Huge rumbling sounds overlapped together. The entire sword formation suddenly shook, followed by a crisp tearing sound. Two cracks appeared on the sword intent in the eye of the formation, and it instantly collapsed. Boom! In the next moment, the sword formation violently shook. The 18 scarlet sword images immediately condensed together, converging into a scarlet-red flame that burned in the air. It seemed like even the space was about to burn. Twilight Blade Heart Flame. When everyone saw this scene, they all knew that the main body of the Twilight Blade Heart Flame had appeared. Ghost Scar and Duguni's figures were still in the air. Both of them understood everything. Looking at each other, they immediately moved at the same time. Dugunai, I'll help you. Just at this moment, a fierce roar rang out. Chen Xinwen's feet leaned against him, and he slapped out with a palm. The terrifying palm force was like a mountain, pressing towards Ghost Scar. It was very obvious that Chen Xinwen wanted to help Dugunai snatch the Twilight Blade Heart Flame. If Ghost Scar wanted to compete, he would have to receive a direct palm from Chen Xinwen. Even if he did not die, he would definitely be seriously injured. But facing the Twilight Blade Heart Flame, how could Ghost Scar care so much? His figure was like a black light, directly rushing towards the Twilight Blade Heart Flame. Ghost Scar, you're courting death by snatching something from me. Duguanai chuckled, his body releasing balls of black light. It was his 100 Void Chi. Duguanai had the 100 Void body, which could weaken everyone's strength. In order to compete for the Twilight Blade Heart Flame, he had already used all his methods. Really? Gui Hen smiled coldly. Immediately after, a pair of black wings appeared behind his back. The wings folded and formed a terrifying barrier, blocking the Void Chi outside. Don't even think about it. At this moment, another voice rang out. It was Nyetian. His figure was as fast as lightning, and the meteor wings on his back fluttered. The Heaven Sword Absolute released a dazzling sword radiance. Boom! A loud explosion sounded in the air as the sword shadow blocked Chen Xinwen's fatal attack. Nyetian's body trembled slightly, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His strength was still slightly weaker than a peak powerhouse. If it wasn't a life-and-death battle, he would still be slightly weaker than Chen Xinwen. However, his actions were very timely. At the very least, he had blocked the fatal blow for Ghost Scar. At this moment, Ghost Scar and Duguanai simultaneously arrived beside the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Two sword images shot out, transforming into two sharp claws that enveloped the Twilight Blade's heart flame. The Twilight Blade's heart flame swayed violently in midair. Then, it actually retreated. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Two sharp claws condensed from sword intent landed with a loud bang and actually forcefully tore apart the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Ghost Scar and Duguanai were too powerful. They actually tore apart the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Boom! Boom! The Twilight Blade's heart flame turned into two fireballs. Being attacked by the external sword intent, it immediately became berserk. Blood-red flames charged out and instantly spread into a sea of fire. Blood-colored sword intent wreaked havoc in the space. This is the time. Ghost Scar and Duguanai both understood when they saw the situation. This was the best time to fuse the Twilight Blade's heart flame. The two figures moved and actually poured into the crimson flames. Terrifying sword intent was released around their bodies, frenziedly absorbing the energy within the sea of fire. They're fusing with the demonic fire. Everyone was immediately stunned when they saw this scene and cried out in surprise. The outcome in front of them was something that no one had expected. Ghost Scar and Duguanai actually evenly split the Twilight Blade's heart flame. In just a blink of an eye, the two seas of fire burning in midair directly disappeared and poured into Ghost Scar's and Duguanai's bodies. Everything returned to tranquility, as if nothing had happened. Ghost Scar and Duguanai's figures stood in the air. Exchanging a glance, they each retreated. The two of them had just absorbed the Twilight Blade's energy. If they were to forcefully fight at this moment, it was extremely likely that the Twilight Blade's heart flame would fuse together again. That was a result that neither of them was willing to see. What the two of them needed to do now was to refine the Twilight Blade's heart flame's energy and turn it into their own. The Twilight Blade's heart flame was the sixth demonic fire. It contained a terrifying energy within. Wanting to completely refine it would require a very long time. It was absolutely not something that could be done overnight. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Ghost Scar and Duguanai didn't make a move. Nye Tian looked at Ghost Scar and Duguanai as he thought to himself, the two of them have each obtained half of the Twilight Blade's heart flame. If they completely refine the demonic fire's energy after a few months, their abilities will definitely increase. I'm afraid that Mo Qianjun and Jiuqian Sheng won't be their match then. Ghost Scar and Duguanai could use the Twilight Blade's heart flame's energy. Even if they couldn't break through to the godly realm, they would still be able to reach the Snow Empress level and become demigods. When that happened, Mo Qianjun and Jiuqian Sheng wouldn't be their match. Nye Tian felt a little uncomfortable when he thought of this. If Mo Qianjun or Jiuqian Sheng were here, he would definitely let one of them fuse with the demonic fire instead of helping Ghost Scar. Thank you, Nye Tian. Ghost Scar landed beside Nye Tian and thanked him sincerely. If Nye Tian hadn't recognized the core of the sword formation, they wouldn't have been able to break the Twilight Blade's sword formation, and they wouldn't have been able to fuse with the demonic fire. Furthermore, Nye Tian had the chance to fuse with the demonic fire, but he gave it up. This made Ghost Scar very confused. If Ghost Scar was in Huiyuhao's shoes, he would definitely help even if he said he wouldn't fuse with the Twilight Blade's heart flame. Don't tell me he really doesn't care about the Twilight Blade's heart flame? Ghost Scar asked doubtfully as he looked at Nye Tian. Nye Tian didn't really care about the Twilight Blade's heart flame. He didn't think that the Twilight Blade's heart flame would improve his sword Dao much. The most important thing was that Nye Tian was a man of his word. How could he go back on his promise to Ghost Scar? Nye Tian. At this moment, Chen Xinwen looked at Nye Tian cold and spoke in a deep voice. Just now, it was all because of Nye Tian's obstruction. Otherwise, he would definitely have heavily injured Ghost Scar and allowed Dugu and I to take the Twilight Blade's heart flame for himself. Lord Dole Emperor, don't look at me with such hatred. Now isn't the time for us to shed all pretense of cordiality. Nye Tianling laughed and said directly. Chen Xinwen frowned and his expression was extremely gloomy. Lord Dole Emperor, we are still in the illusion realm. It's better to work together. Bailey Fengchen stood up and said indifferently. Ghost Scar and Duguanai would share the Twilight Blade's heart flame. This was the best ending. At the very least, it wouldn't cause the seven-man team to break up. Chen Xinwen nodded slightly and forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. Everyone calmed down and looked at the giant tree in front of them. This was the illusory eye of the illusion array. In order to break the illusion realm, they had to destroy the illusory eye. Unfortunately, The illusory I was protected by a space-time enchantment. How could they break the space-time enchantment? Chapter 1309. In the illusion, Nye Tian and the others looked at the giant tree in front of them, but they were at their wits' end. Although everyone knew that the giant tree was the eye of the illusion, they couldn't break the space-time enchantment, so they couldn't destroy the eye. At this moment, Nye Tian looked at Qin Xinwen and said with a plain tone, "Lord Pill Emperor, since you want to merge with the space-time Armageddon, I'm sure you've prepared something. At this point, there's no need to hide it anymore, right?" Qin Xinwen was going to fuse with the space-time doomsday. Moreover, he was a space-time formation master, so he must have prepared something. If Nye Tian and the others were to forcefully break the space-time enchantment, it would be difficult. Space-time enchantment was different from ordinary enchantments. It contained the power of space-time. If one wanted to destroy it, it would be very difficult unless one's power was several times stronger than the power of the space-time enchantment. Qin Xinwen looked at Nye Tian and smiled cold. He was obviously guarding against the latter. Then, he looked at Bailey Fengchen and said, "Lord Illusion Emperor, I have a way to break the space-time enchantment, but I need your guarantee. If I break the enchantment and force out the main body of the space-time doomsday, I must fuse with it. Moreover, if I become weak because of this, no one is allowed to attack me." Qin Xinwen spoke in a righteous tone. The rascals he was referring to were obviously Nye Tian, Ghost Scar, and the others. He had indeed prepared something that could break the space-time enchantment. However, after that, he would be weak for a short period of time. Therefore, he was worried that Nye Tian would attack him during that time. Although Duguanai was also there, Ghost Scar was enough to restrain him. At that time, Qin Xinwen would become a lamb waiting to be slaughtered by Nye Tian. Now, Qin Xinwen was forcing Bailey Fengchen to guarantee him, so it was reasonable. This. Bailey Fengchen was dazed for a moment, then revealed a difficult expression. He could already see that the conflict between Nye Tian and Qin Xinwen was deep and irreconcilable. If Nye Tian made a move, would he still have to fight with Nye Tian? There were no grudges between him and Nye Tian. Moreover, there were two layers of relationships between Zhua Qianchen and Long Outyin. Of course, he was biased towards Nye Tian. Qin Xinwen's request indeed put him in a difficult position. Qin Xinwen, stop making things difficult for him. At this time, Nye Tian took a step forward and said in a cold voice, "Don't worry. I won't attack you even if you become weak." A dignified alchemy emperor actually gauges the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a despicable person. It's truly an eye-opener. After Nye Tian finished speaking, he looked at Qin Xinwen contemptuously. He did want to kill the other party, but he would not take advantage of the other party's precarious situation. With his current strength, he would not be afraid of Qin Xinwen even if it was a head-on battle. "Nye Tian, I hope you're not a despicable person who goes back on his word." Qin Xinwen smiled cold and said in a deep voice, "Although I, Nye Tian, am not a gentleman, I'm not a despicable person who goes back on his word." Nye Tianling responded coldly, "Lord Alchemy Emperor, now is not the time to argue. I believe in Lord Aojian's character. Lord Alchemy Emperor, please make your move." Bailey Fengchen stepped forward and said with a nod. Now that everyone was in an illusion, their minds were in danger of being swallowed by the first nightmare. If they continued arguing, the situation would only worsen. Yes. Qin Xinwen nodded slightly. What he wanted was Nye Tian's guarantee. Qin Xinwen stepped forward and came to the front of the space-time enchantment. He closed his eyes and was obviously sensing something. After a while, he opened his eyes and two scrolls appeared in his hands. He immediately unfolded them. What a powerful space-time aura! Everyone's eyes trembled when they sensed the powerful aura in the scrolls. Two scrolls, one was a sealing scroll and the other was a space-time scroll. Both were rank 8 scrolls and were very frightening. Since Chen Xinwen came for the space-time doomsday, how could he not prepare well? Everyone's eyes were focused on Chen Xinwen and their nerves were stretched taut. No one knew what would happen next. Chen Xinwen let out a long breath. He was obviously very nervous. He moved his mind and the space-time scroll released a powerful space-time aura. The invisible space-time power condensed into a space-time vortex and surged wildly in the void. In the next moment, the space-time vortex became violent and attacked the space-time enchantment crazily. Bang! 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 A series of muffled sounds were heard and a terrifying fluctuation came from the invisible space. It was as if the entire space had become extremely unstable and could be torn apart at any time. Everyone was nervous. If the space-time exploded, it would really be the end of the world. Even peak Heavenly Emperor powerhouses could not withstand the impact power of the space-time storm too. Chen Xinwen's brows furrowed, bean-sized beads of sweat seeping out of his forehead, his complexion slightly pale. Very clearly, controlling the space-time scroll consumed a large amount of his essence energy and mental power. Rumble! 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 Following the continuous impact of the space-time vortex, cracks finally appeared on the space-time enchantment. The entire space became on the verge of collapse. Everyone's hearts leaped to their throats. They knew that the next moment was the most crucial moment. Break for me! Right at this time, Chen Xinwen gave a deep roar. The last powerful space-time power on the space-time scroll attacked over. Rumble! The void rumbled. The space-time enchantment immediately collapsed. Right at this instant, a cluster of dark white interweaving light balls suddenly appeared in the void. It opened its huge mouth like a monster, wanting to devour everything. Space-time doomsday. Everyone saw the dark white light ball and felt the extremely violent space-time power. Their eyes trembled violently and they cried out in shock. Without a doubt, the dark white light ball that appeared in front of them was the main body of the space-time doomsday. That kind of extremely powerful space-time aura was suffocating. It was as if the entire space was pulled taut and was about to collapse. Space-time doomsday is mine. The instant Chen Xinwen saw the space-time doomsday, his expression revealed not shock, but greed. He came to Purgatory Mountain for the space-time doomsday. Now that the demonic fire appeared, how could he not be excited? Chen Xinwen did not hesitate and threw out the sealing scroll in his hand. An enormous and boundless sealing power spread out like a huge net, enveloping towards the space-time doomsday. Space-time doomsday was the fifth demonic fire. The space-time aura contained in it was too strong. Chen Xinwen did not dare to immediately fuse with it. Therefore, he first sealed the demonic fire and then slowly fused with it. Can a rank 8 space-time seal scroll seal space-time doomsday? Nie Tian watched from the side, the holographic divine patterns locked onto space-time doomsday. He had some doubts in his heart. Boom! At this moment, a loud rumble came from the void. The sealing power enveloped space-time doomsday. Waves of sealing power were frantically released, wanting to completely seal space-time doomsday. Boom! However, the next moment, space-time doomsday suddenly became violent. The dark white light ball actually turned into a giant snake. Its body suddenly expanded, and a vast space-time power surged out. Boom! With a muffled sound, the sealing power directly exploded, and the sealing scroll also collapsed. Space-time doomsday directly broke free from the control. When everyone saw this scene, their eyes trembled, and their expressions were shocked. Boom! Then, the space-time giant snake's body rolled, and a terrifying crack appeared in the void. Space-time was torn apart, and a violent power surged out from the crack, condensing into a huge hurricane. Chapter 13:10. The space-time doomsday broke free from the seal scroll's control and actually tore the void. A huge space-time storm appeared and attacked towards everyone like a wild snake. Oh no! In an instant, everyone's heart trembled violently. Their eyes were filled with terror. No one could have imagined that the space-time doomsday would be so violent. Not only did it break free from the seal, it even created a terrible space-time storm. The strangling power of the space-time storm was extremely terrifying. Even the martial body of a peak heavenly emperor could not withstand it. Rumble! At this moment, the space-time storm turned into a space-time wave and surged out, spreading towards everyone. Watch out! Nye Tian reacted the fastest. He immediately released the shrouding sky totem and formed a shrouding sky boundary, trying to stop the impact of the space-time storm. Kaboom! However, in just an instant, the shrouding sky boundary had just formed and was directly torn apart by the space-time storm. Even the power of the stars was swallowed by the space-time storm. Nye Tian's body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The power of the space-time storm was too terrifying. It was not something that the shrouding sky boundary could resist at all. Seeing this, everyone released all the power in their body to resist the invasion of the space-time storm. Nye Tian's body surged with a huge power of the stars. He activated the heavenly star protection and protected Tian Gong beside him. Bailey Fengchen frowned tightly. His whole body surged with black illusionary power. He directly activated the Dark Night Dust Illusion boundary and enveloped everyone. Boom! At this moment, the space-time storm rushed over. There was an ear-piercing sound in the air. The terrible power was swallowing each other. Ah! The next moment, Bailey Fengchen screamed. His whole body trembled. The Dark Night Dust Illusion boundary instantly collapsed. The power of the space-time storm was extremely terrifying. Even Bailey Fengchen could not resist it. It's over. Everyone's heart suddenly trembled. At this moment they felt the real aura of death. Space-time storm was a power that they could not resist. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The space-time storm instantly pressed over. The strangling power from all directions enveloped everyone. They could not resist at all. Screams sounded immediately. Everyone's body was distorted by the pressure. Their faces became hideous. Nye Tian released all the essence force in his body to support himself while protecting Tian Gong at the same time. With Tian Gong's strength, without Nye Tian's protection, he would have been crushed into meat paste long ago. Nye Tian might not be the strongest among them, but his martial body was the strongest. The God-fiend origin embryo, the exalted dragon vein, and the power of the stars. Nye Tian's martial body was probably stronger than even the Snow Empress, who possessed the Snow Cloud sacred body. But the space-time storm was too strong. The space-time strangulation power could instantly strangle peak heavenly emperor powerhouses. With Nye Tian's strength, he could only hold on for a few seconds at most. What should I do? In an instant Nye Tian's mind roared. This was a moment of life and death. If he didn't do anything, he would definitely die within a few seconds. Ah! But at this moment, a strong space-time pressure came and directly descended on Nye Tian's body. His body actually shrank a little due to the pressure. His entire body was completely distorted. His physical body and soul were almost torn apart in an instant. Nye Tian felt that all the spatial rings on his body were actually shattering. The power in the spatial rings was all absorbed by the space-time storm. Roar! The only spatial item on Nye Tian's body that did not shatter was the spirit dragon ring. A furious dragon roar erupted from the spirit dragon ring. The power of the spirit dragon ring was very strong. It could actually resist the pressure of the space-time storm. But even if Nye Tian released the green dragon at this moment, it would definitely be instantly swallowed by the space-time storm. The terrifying power of the storm surged wildly in the void. The tearing power was brutal. Oh! At the moment of life and death, Nye Tian's mind trembled slightly. He actually felt that there was a space-time power surging out of his body. Space-time crystal chip. Nye Tian suddenly thought of something. His mind shook, and the corners of his mouth revealed a joyful smile. Space-time crystal chip. It was the space-time power released by the space-time crystal chip on his body. The space-time crystal chip was obtained by Tian in the Ice and Fire world. When he left the Ice and Fire world, he had obtained a space-time crystal chip. He remembered very clearly that this space-time crystal chip was very strange. On the surface, it did not have a strong aura. But when his divine sense entered the crystal chip, he would find that there was an extremely vast space inside, as if it was a world of its own. At that time, Tian had suspected that it was very likely that he had obtained the legendary space-time crystal chip. Now, he was very sure that this crystal chip was the space-time crystal chip. The space-time crystal chip was formed after the space-time was highly compressed. There was a vast space-time inside it. It was an extremely dense space-time structure. No one knew where the space-time crystal chip came from. Such a magical thing could only be found by chance. Perhaps the space-time crystal chip can resist the space-time storm. In an instant, Tian's heart suddenly trembled. Then, his divine sense moved and entered the space-time crystal chip. At this moment, the space-time crystal chip seemed to have sensed something. A huge force was released. In the void, there seemed to be an invisible giant hand that directly grabbed the space-time storm. Boom! At the same time, Tian felt a roar in his head. The next moment, his figure appeared in a different space-time. This is... Tian looked at the strange illusion around him. He frowned and his whole body was petrified. Around him, there were countless space-time vortexes floating. In the sky above his head, there were countless space-time storms surging, extending into a sea of storms. The whole world was roaring in the space-time storms. Tian sensed the space-time aura around him. It was a very mysterious aura. It was as if he had entered a completely different space-time. He could not even feel his own existence, as if he had integrated with this space-time. This is the internal space of the space-time crystal chip. After a while, Tian finally reacted. He frowned slightly and looked confused. He did not know why he was here. Just when he was confused, there was another roar in his head. Then, his divine sense came out from the internal space of the space-time crystal chip. Tian suddenly woke up. He was surprised to see that the space-time storms around him were instantly absorbed by the space-time crystal chip. The whole world became silent. Everyone looked at Tian in shock. They had no idea what was going on. They were originally wrapped in the space-time storms and were about to be minced into pieces. However, Tian released a space-time force and absorbed the space-time storms. This was too strange. Tian was also stunned. He did not know what was going on. Where is the space-time doomsday? After a while, Tian became cold. He found that the space-time doomsday had disappeared. It seems that you have absorbed it. Tiangong was the first to react. He said in shock. Tian was taken aback, and his expression stiffened. I absorbed it? Chapter 13:11. After a long time, Tian finally calmed down and regained his composure. He didn't expect the space-time crystal to be so powerful. Not only did it absorb the space-time storm, it even absorbed the space-time apocalypse. As a thought entered Tian's mind, he tried to locate the space-time chip, but to his surprise, it was nowhere to be found. He checked his entire body, Yuan Meridian, Origin Star Stone, Soul Space, Spirit Dragon Ring, but he was shocked. The space-time crystal had strangely disappeared. How is this possible? Tian was dumbfounded and couldn't react for a long time. He couldn't understand why the space-time crystal had strangely disappeared. The space-time crystal absorbed the space-time apocalypse, but it definitely didn't die together with it. Tian was very sure about this. Tian, did something happen? Bailey Fengchen's complexion slightly improved. Seeing Tian's strange expression, he couldn't help but ask. It's nothing. Tian shook his head slightly and forced a smile. He said inwardly, forget it, let's not worry about this for now. Let's break the illusion first. Chen Xinwen's expression was extremely ugly. He looked at Nie Tian with a gloomy expression, but he couldn't say anything. Nie Tian had indeed absorbed the spacetime apocalypse, but if he didn't, everyone would have been killed by the spacetime storm. No matter what, Nie Tian had saved everyone. Just based on this point, Chen Xinwen couldn't say anything. Nie Tian, I must obtain the spacetime apocalypse. As long as I leave Purgatory Mountain, I will definitely snatch it back. Chen Xinwen said sinisterly. He didn't know that Nie Tian had the spacetime crystal. He only thought that Nie Tian had absorbed the spacetime apocalypse. As long as he killed Nie Tian, the spacetime apocalypse would naturally appear again. Lord Illusion Emperor, it's time to break the illusion. Nie Tian sensed Chen Xinwen's evil intentions, but he didn't care. He looked at Bailey Fengchen and said, "Yes." Bailey Fengchen nodded and walked towards the huge tree. This time, without the protection of the space-time barrier, the illusory eye could no longer be protected. In fact, Nie Tian was a little confused at the moment. They had been trapped in the illusion for so long, but they did not feel their divine sense being devoured. It seemed like the first nightmare only wanted to imprison them. At that moment, Bailey Fengchen arrived in front of the Eye of Illusion. He took a deep breath and unleashed all the power in his body as he struck out with his palm. Boom! The palm strike was extremely powerful, and the vast power was like the roar of a mountain or the roar of a tsunami. The air trembled slightly, and with a violent explosion, the illusory eye giant tree was directly destroyed. In an instant, the illusion collapsed, and time and space changed. The environment in front of everyone became real, and they were now outside a canyon. The illusion has been broken, but what about the first nightmare? Everyone was stunned, and they were all surprised. Unexpectedly, although the illusion was broken, there was no sign of the first nightmare. Bailey Fengchen was surprised, and then he took out the demon fire diagram. According to the diagram, the first nightmare was not far from them, and it seemed to be right in front of them. Bailey Fengchen frowned, and then he raised his head and looked at the canyon not far away. He said in a deep voice, "The first nightmare is in the canyon." His expression was extremely puzzled. With his perception, he should be able to clearly sense the first nightmare since he was so close to it. However, he did not sense the first nightmare's aura at all. Bailey Fengchen turned around and looked at Sui Qianchen. The latter shook his head slightly. Obviously, he could not sense anything either. There is something wrong with this canyon. Let's go in and take a look. Nie Tian looked at the canyon in front of him and frowned slightly. His holographic divine glyph enveloped the canyon, but it was dark. He could not sense anything in the canyon. He was only a few hundred meters away from the canyon. At such a close distance, the perception of the holographic divine glyph should be the strongest. How could he not sense anything? One should know that the holographic divine glyph was known to be able to sense everything in the world. Everything in front of him was too strange. Even though he knew that it was dangerous, Nie Tian still wanted to go and check it out. The others frowned, obviously thinking about whether they should enter the canyon or not. After experiencing the space-time storm, everyone knew how dangerous the thing they were facing was, and they immediately felt timid. They were all top powerhouses, but in the face of death and the unknown, they were equally afraid. Boom! At that moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the canyon, and then a strange black light shot up to the sky. Huh! Everyone looked up at the black light in the sky, and their eyes trembled violently. That black light surged crazily in the sky. Waves after waves of strange evil energy were released, and the world actually turned dark in an instant. What is that? Tiangong was stunned and exclaimed. He could clearly sense a terrifying demonic fire aura from the black light. However, it was obvious that the black light was not the first nightmare, but another demonic fire. Everyone was scared out of their wits, and did not dare to get close. They could only look at the scene in the sky dumbfoundedly. "Everyone, have you heard of the Supreme Twin Fires?" At that moment, Bailey Fengchen seemed to have discovered something and asked in surprise. "Supreme Twin Fires?" Everyone was slightly stunned, not knowing what Bailey Fengchen was talking about. When Ye Tian heard those words, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he said with a trembling voice, "The Supreme Twin Fires that the Illusion Emperor mentioned, are they the two great demonic fires that were born at the beginning of the world? The first demonic fire, the universe boundary, and the second demonic fire, the heart of nothingness?" Nye Tian had studied demonic fires in his previous life, and he had read in an ancient book that the Supreme Twin Fires were the first and second demonic fires. According to the ancient book, the first demonic fire, the universe boundary, was a strange demonic fire that was born at the beginning of the world. It was a powerful fire that was nurtured from the scar of the universe at the time of the world's creation. It contained a terrifying creation energy, and was said to be able to create a new world. However, the first demonic fire was only a legend, and no one had ever seen its true appearance. The second demonic fire, the heart of nothingness, was also born at the time of the world's creation, but it was born in the nothingness at the beginning of the world's creation. It was said that it had the power to devour the heavens and the earth, and only the universe boundary could resist the devouring power of the heart of nothingness. The heart of nothingness had once appeared during the ancient war of gods and demons, but it had disappeared and never appeared again. Although the universe boundary and the heart of nothingness were also demonic fires on the demonic fire list, the two great demonic fires were thousands of times stronger than the other demonic fires. One had the power of creation, and the other had the power to destroy. Compared to the other demonic fires, the universe boundary and the heart of nothingness were the supreme demonic fires, the kings of all demonic fires. Yes. When Bailey Fengchen saw that Nye Tian actually knew about the Supreme Twin Fires, he could not help but be startled. Then, he nodded his head, and his expression became even more solemn. He said, "If the Supreme Twin Fires appear, will there be a pilgrimage of 10,000 flames? Pilgrimage of 10,000 flames?" When he heard these words, Nye Tian's eyes trembled violently, and he immediately understood. If there was anything in this world that could gather so many demonic fires, it could only be the Supreme Twin Fires. In an instant, Nye Tian suddenly came to a realization. The first nightmare, Spacetime Doomsday, and the Dusk Blade's Heart Flame. These three great demonic fires were summoned by the Supreme Twin Fires. Chapter 13:12. The Sovereign Dual Fire. Nye Tian came to his senses and looked at the ball of black light in the sky. His pupils suddenly shrank, and his expression became slightly sluggish. He was extremely shocked. That ball of black light was one of the legendary Sovereign Dual Fire. "Lord Illusion Emperor, are you saying that the ball of black light is the Sovereign Demonic Fire?" Tiangong also understood at this moment. He asked in shock, and even his voice couldn't help but tremble. The others were even more stunned. No one had expected the legendary Sovereign Demonic Fire to appear in the Purgatory Mountain. Yes. Bailey Fengchen nodded heavily. He was equally shocked. He knew better than anyone else how terrifying the Sovereign Demonic Fire was. At this moment, the ball of black light in the sky surged crazily. The world was filled with the terrifying aura of the demonic fire, as if the entire world was going to be devoured by the demonic fire. At this moment, Nye Tian suddenly sensed something. His expression changed, and he shouted in shock, "Not good!" His holographic divine patterns sensed that there seemed to be a terrifying seal around the ball of black light. The ball of black light was about to break the seal. Chi-chi-chi. An ear-piercing sound could be heard in the sky. Waves of terrifying demonic fire power were wreaking havoc in the sky. The black flames slowly condensed into a hideous ghost face. It was faintly discernible and extremely frightening. The Sovereign Demonic Fire is about to break the seal. We must stop it. Nye Tian had a vague, uneasy feeling in his heart, and he shouted loudly. Nye Tian, the devouring aura of this demonic fire is very strong. It must be the second demonic fire, the heart of nothingness. Bailey Fengchen's voice also sounded at this moment. He suddenly thought of something and said, I've read in an ancient book that the heart of nothingness appeared during the ancient war of gods and demons, but it mysteriously disappeared afterward. Purgatory Mountain. Almost at the same time, Chen Xinwen's voice also sounded. He said with great panic, the Snow Empress said that the Purgatory Mountain was the battlefield of the ancient war of gods and demons. The Purgatory Mountain was formed at that time. That's right. Bailey Fengchen's eyes flickered as he said, this demonic flame is the heart of nothingness. It was sealed in Purgatory Mountain by the ancient gods and devils during the ancient era. I fear that the soul refinement flame of World's End Purgatory was also released by the heart of nothingness. As expected. Hearing this, Nye Tian understood everything, and his heart trembled violently. The heart of nothingness appeared in the ancient times. It was sealed in Purgatory Mountain by the ancient warriors. Now, it was actually going to break through the seal and reappear in the world. No one knows how terrifying the power of the heart of nothingness is. I must stop it from breaking the seal. Otherwise, the heaven realm's god realm will face a calamity. Nye Tian thought to himself. His entire body was covered in sweat. The heart of nothingness was one of the supreme twin flames. It was a powerful monster that could only be sealed by an ancient god realm martial artist. Could Nye Tian and the others stop it with their strength alone? GGG. Right at this moment, a sinister and strange laughter came from the sky. Each laugh was like the trembling of hell. It was extremely frightening, and it was filled with an extremely sinister aura. Foolish humans, you have sealed me for hundreds of thousands of years and imprisoned me in the depths of the abyss. Now, it is time for you to pay the price. The sinister voice was extremely ear-piercing, and it shook everyone's eardrums to the point of rupturing. The black ghost face became ferocious and violent. Black flames soared into the sky, attacking the ancient seal. Bailey Fengchen was right. The demonic flame in front of them was the second demonic flame, the heart of nothingness. The heart of nothingness was said to be able to devour everything in the world. If it was allowed to break the seal, it could instantly devour the entire heaven realm's god realm. The heart of nothingness contained the power to destroy the world. That kind of terrifying power was unimaginable. Humans, a group of insignificant and despicable existences. You will pay the price for what you have done. The heart of nothingness roared ferociously. It gathered all the power in its body, and its devouring power became more and more terrifying. It had been imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years. Now that the soul-confining seal had weakened, it was the best time for it to break the seal. Oh no! Nye Tian's heart trembled slightly. The heart of nothingness hated humans very much. If it was allowed to break the seal, the entire heaven realm's god realm would become its meal. At that moment, everyone was stunned. They stared blankly at the heart of nothingness. They were completely shocked by its all-devouring aura. Stupid humans, I have to thank you for your help in breaking the seal. The heart of nothingness laughed sinisterly. The black flames in the void continued to spread. What do you mean? Nye Tian was slightly stunned. He was the only one among them who could still maintain his composure. Huh! At that moment, the heart of nothingness looked at Nye Tian and let out a strange sound. It laughed strangely and said arrogantly, I didn't expect that the divine demon original embryo, the number one ancient taboo, would appear. It seems that the heavens are very kind to me. After I break the seal, I will devour the divine demon original embryo to restore at least half of my strength. Ha ha! At the end of its words, the heart of nothingness laughed crazily. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, his eyes filled with astonishment. He didn't expect the heart of nothingness to be so terrifying. With just a glance, it could recognize the divine demon original embryo. Puny human, having the fiend god nascent embryo in your body is simply a waste. You should just hand it over to me. The heart of nothingness laughed arrogantly and said, Since you are the divine demon original embryo, I will tell you that the soul refining fire in the purgatory of horizon is a clone of mine of nothingness. There are many warriors imprisoned in the purgatory of horizon. I absorb their essence, force, and souls every day. That is why I can break the seal. Ah! The savage and cruel voice resounded in the void. It was like a merciless laugh at the stupidity of humans. So it is like this. Nye Tian was very surprised. It turned out that the heart of nothingness had been absorbing the power of the people imprisoned in the purgatory of horizon. That was why it could break the seal. The purgatory of horizon was a perfect prison because of the existence of the soul refining fire. It could make warriors endure the most painful torture. Because of this, warriors were constantly being sent from the purgatory of horizon. The heart of nothingness could continuously absorb the power of these warriors. Damn it! When Nye Tian understood this, he couldn't help but roar. He immediately knew that the heart of nothingness had also devoured Han Fei and Zhang Jianqing's power. No. At this time, the heart of nothingness seemed to have discovered something. It was surprised and stared at Nye Tian with its black hole-like eyes. It shook violently and shouted, You still have. The heart of nothingness seemed to have discovered something, but it didn't continue. Nye Tian frowned slightly. He didn't know what the heart of nothingness had discovered in his body. The heart of nothingness wasn't even afraid of the divine demon original embryo, but it didn't dare to continue. Did Nye Tian have something more terrifying than the divine demon original embryo? GGG. At that moment, the heart of nothingness let out a cunning laugh. Fixing his pitch-black eyes on Nye Tian, he said, Human boy, you're different from the others. I'll give you a chance to be my servant. What do you think? As the heart of nothingness's voice fell, the others were shocked. Chapter 13:13. The heart of nothingness's hideous face suddenly calmed down, the pitch-black pair of eyes staring tightly at Nye Tian. Servant. Nye Tian looked at the heart of nothingness and was slightly taken aback. But then he laughed coldly, laughing disdainfully and strangely. He was harmed by Luo Chenhun father and daughter in his previous life. How could he be someone else's servant again in this life? The same mistake, he absolutely would not make a second time. At this very moment, Nye Tian clearly read one word from the heart of nothingness. Dread? Right. It was dread. Nye Tian detected that the heart of nothingness actually had dread toward him. If there was not this trace of dread, how could the heart of nothingness possibly make Nye Tian, or how could it possibly give up the godfiend essence embryo? Could it be that there's something on me that makes the heart of nothingness feel fear? Nye Tian said in his heart, the scene in front of him becoming strange. The heart of nothingness was not even afraid of the godfiend essence embryo. Therefore, this thing that made it dread must be even more terrifying than the godfiend essence embryo. Then, what on earth could it be? One had to know. Even a peak deity realm powerhouse like Sakra Heaven fell at the hands of a godfiend. 9 Extreme War God Art? Supreme Dragon Vein? Holographic Divine Patterns? Spirit Dragon Ring? Soul Devouring Sword Intent? Dragon Vein Seal? Several guesses flashed across Nye Tian's mind, but he immediately rejected them. Although these few things were terrifying, they absolutely would not be stronger than the godfiend essence embryo. Finally, Nye Tian placed his speculations on 2 things, the space-time crystal chip and the primordial star stone. If there was something in his body stronger than the godfiend essence embryo, then it could only be the space-time crystal chip or the primordial star stone. Although he did not know where the space-time crystal chip was right now, he was very certain that it must be on him. The space-time crystal chip had just devoured the space-time doomsday. The terror of its power was already verified. And the power of the primordial star stone had always been what Nye Tian could not understand. He was already almost reaching peak Heavenly Emperor, but did not even activate half of the stellar power inside the Star Origin Stone. The terror of the Star Origin Stone could be seen at a glance. Moreover, he was sure that it was definitely because of the raw star stone that the fiend god nascent embryo was affected. That was why he could reincarnate in just 100 years. Is it a space-time chip or a raw star stone? Nye Tian guessed. He suddenly looked at the Heart of Nothingness and smiled cold. Heart of Nothingness, you're afraid of my star energy, right? The power of the stars, the origin of power. Nye Tian was more inclined to believe that the Heart of Nothingness was afraid of primal star stones. Human brat, are you looking down on me? In an instant, the Heart of Nothingness read the deep contempt in Nye Tian's eyes, and it couldn't help but become furious. It roared in a deep voice, "Tell me, where did you get that stone?" As expected, seeing the Heart of Nothingness's reaction, Nye Tian was overjoyed. He guessed right. What the Heart of Nothingness was afraid of was primal star stones. What in the world was primal star stones? Even the Heart of Nothingness that claimed to have the power to destroy the world was afraid. Since that's the case, I don't need to be afraid of you. Nye Tianling smiled coldly and instantly calmed down. The corners of his mouth curled up in a cold smile. At this time, he felt that the Heart of Nothingness was about to break the seal, so he did not wait any longer. Both feet stomping, meteor wings appeared on his back, and he actually directly rushed towards the Heart of Nothingness. Nye Tian. Until this time, when Tian Gong and the rest saw Nye Tian's action, they could not help exclaiming, scared until their faces were drained of blood. Was Nye Tian crazy? Did he want to die? He rushed straight towards the Heart of Nothingness just like that. In midair, Nye Tian released enormous star energy all over his body. The heaven-shrouding totem appeared, and a large glittering net flickered. The entire stretch of sky was illuminated, becoming dazzling. The heaven-shrouding totem directly enveloped the Heart of Nothingness. Hee! In the next moment, the Heart of Nothingness let out a shrill cry, and the wild black flames actually retracted, not daring to directly touch the heaven-shrouding totem. The Heart of Nothingness is indeed afraid of the power of the stars. Seeing this scene, Nye Tian suddenly felt joy in his heart, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a smile. In fact, he had gambled with his life. If the Heart of Nothingness was not afraid of the power of the stars, then he would be in danger now. At such a close distance, he could instantly be swallowed by the Heart of Nothingness. Damn stone, you have been suppressing me since the beginning of the world. Millions of years have passed, is it still not enough? The black flames around the Heart of Nothingness quickly retracted, not daring to touch the heaven-shrouding totem. Its mouth roared ferociously, seeming very angry. Huh! Hearing the Heart of Nothingness's words, Nye Tian slightly narrowed his eyes, extremely shocked. According to the legend, the Heart of Nothingness was born in the nothingness at the beginning of the world. It said that the primal star stone had always been suppressing it. Didn't that mean that the primal star stone was also something that existed at the beginning of the world? Thinking of this, Nye Tian could not help but frown, an extremely surprised expression on his face, and shouted loudly, "Heart of Nothingness, what is this stone you speak of?" The Heart of Nothingness let out several strange laughs, and the aura around its body converged, gradually condensing into a black ball of light, like a black hole, extremely strange. The black ball of light trembled a few times and said, "Human boy, you actually don't know what this stone is. It's simply a disgrace in your hands. You talk too much nonsense." Nye Tian frowned, and the power of the stars crazily surged out of his body, directly enveloping the Heart of Nothingness. The black ball of light continued to tremble, as if it was trembling, and rapidly became smaller. On the ground, Tian Gong and the others were completely dumbfounded, their eyes filled with extreme disbelief, and their faces were blank, as if they were in a dream. What exactly was the power that Nye Tian had released? How could it make the heart of nothingness so afraid? They could feel that the power was not very strong, but it seemed to be the nemesis of the heart of nothingness, and the latter did not dare to come into direct contact with it. All of this was too strange. It seemed that the reincarnated Nye Tian was far more terrifying than they had imagined. Human boy, stop right now. The black ball of light trembled continuously, and in an instant it had shrunk to the size of a fist, and there was no longer any violent aura. The power of the stars is indeed strange. Why is the heart of nothingness so afraid? Nye Tian frowned as he watched the scene in front of him. He had originally thought that even if the heart of nothingness was afraid of the primal star stone, he would have to consume a large amount of the power of the stars to control it. However, the reality was that he had only used a little bit of the power of the stars, and the heart of nothingness was already trembling and begging for mercy. The primal star stone was the natural nemesis of the heart of nothingness. Tell me, what is this stone that you speak of? Nye Tianling sneered, and his figure moved, directly arriving beside the heart of nothingness. He stretched out his hand, and a wave of power of the stars was released, firmly grasping the heart of nothingness in his hand. This! Everyone stared at the scene in the sky, and they were instantly petrified. Who would have thought that the heart of nothingness, which could devour heaven and earth, would be played in the palm of Nye Tian's hand? This scene was too strange. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it. Nye Tian held the heart of nothingness in his hand, feeling the terrifying devouring power within it, and was extremely shocked. Chapter 13-14. Nye Tian held the heart of nothingness in his palm. His expression was as gloomy as water as he waited for the heart of nothingness's reply. Human brat, don't force me. There are some things that you can't know. The heart of nothingness was trapped in the power of the stars, but it revealed an expression of extreme panic, its dark voice trembling slightly. Nye Tian narrowed his eyes. He had always wanted to know what the primal star stone was. Now that he finally had the chance, how could he give it up? The corners of his lips curled up in a cold smile. Immediately after, his entire body released a wave of astral energy that transformed into a sharp blade that hung above the heart of nothingness's head. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me, what exactly is the primal star stone? At this moment, Nye Tian wasn't joking. If the heart of nothingness didn't tell him what he wanted to know, he would definitely kill it. Human brat, there are some things that I can't say. If those old monsters found out, they would definitely destroy me. The heart of nothingness didn't seem to care about Nye Tian's threat. Instead, it was worried about something else. It was extremely terrified. Nye Tian frowned. It seemed that the heart of nothingness didn't intend to tell him the true nature of the primal star stone. Since you aren't willing to tell me, you can be imprisoned again. In the next moment, Nye Tian's expression darkened. Immediately after, he sensed the forbidden soul seal in the air. This was an ancient seal that was used to imprison the heart of nothingness. The forbidden soul seal slowly condensed, slowly enveloping the heart of nothingness. Very soon, it was about to imprison the heart of nothingness again. This time, under the suppression of the astral energy, the heart of nothingness's strength had been weakened to the extreme. If it was imprisoned again, even if it was given a few 100,000 years, it would be extremely difficult for it to escape. Nye Tian could see that the heart of nothingness had no intention of answering him. Hence, he could only imprison it again. The heart of nothingness was too terrifying. If it was released, it would be a great threat to the entire heaven world and even the upper realms. Human brat, you still want to imprison me? In an instant, the heart of nothingness understood what Nye Tian wanted to do. It let out a strange cry and actually roared, "Human brat, I don't want to be imprisoned again even if I have to risk my life to be destroyed." Nye Tian was slightly taken aback. There was a sense of unease in his heart. Boom! Right at this moment, the heart of nothingness suddenly expanded, directly breaking through the restraints of the star energy, and immediately pounced towards Nietian. The heart of nothingness released the last of its power, intending to perish together with Nietian. In an instant, Nietian was engulfed in black flames, and a terrifying devouring power surged around him. Nietian! Tiangong and the others couldn't help exclaiming. However, they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. The devouring power of the heart of nothingness was too strong. It wasn't something they could resist. Human brat, the power of the primordial stone in your body hasn't been completely released. I will take over your body. The heart of nothingness screeched, and the black flames turned into a devouring blade that penetrated into Nietian's body. Ah! In an instant, Nietian felt a terrible power raging in his body, making him feel as if all the meridians in his body were being torn apart and devoured. Suddenly, a sharp pain spread throughout his body, causing him to involuntarily scream. Jia jia jia! The heart of nothingness slowly penetrated Nietian's body and immediately issued a strange cry. It sneered coldly. Human brat, I am indeed afraid of that stone, but you are too careless. Do you really think that I have no power to resist? The primordial stone was indeed the heart of nothingness's nemesis, but Nietian had been too careless. He had only used a small amount of star energy to imprison the heart of nothingness, giving the latter an opportunity to counterattack. The heart of nothingness turned into black flames and instantly invaded Nietian's body. It began to frantically devour his meridians, soul, and consciousness. Heart of nothingness, do you really think that you can devour me? However, just as the heart of nothingness completely entered Nietian's body, the latter coldly smiled, the corners of his mouth curling up into an extremely cold smile. How is this possible? In the next moment, the heart of nothingness's panicked voice rang out, filled with extreme shock. It trembled as it said, "The primordial stone in your body has actually fused with the demon god's original embryo." The heart of nothingness instantly sensed that something was wrong and immediately screamed in pain. The black flames rapidly condensed, wanting to escape from Nietian's body. However, it was too late. The heavenly star protection appeared around Nietian's body, and the power of the stars sealed the heart of nothingness's escape route. With a cold smile, Nietian said, "How can I rest assured if I only imprison you with the heart of nothingness? It's better if I imprison you inside of me." The excruciating pain he felt throughout his body was greatly relieved, allowing him to speak normally again. "Cunning human brat, you dare to deceive me!" The heart of nothingness realized what had happened and screamed in shock. It was obvious that Nietian had tricked the heart of nothingness into entering his body. It was just a small trap. Who told you to fall for it? Nietian chuckled. Then, the meridians in his body released a vast amount of star power, forcing the heart of nothingness to gather in his 10th yuan meridian. Earlier, Nietian had already tried to directly absorb the heart of nothingness. However, the heart of nothingness's power was too strong for him to absorb. Helpless, he pretended to be careless and allowed the heart of nothingness to enter his body. This time, Nietian was gambling with his life. He had long known that the power of the stars had already fused with his body. Even his meridians and blood were subtly changing. At this moment, if one were to carefully observe his blood, they would be able to see a dark gold color. This was the effect of the power of the stars. Since the heart of nothingness was so afraid of the primordial stone, how could Nietian let it go? The heart of nothingness contained a terrifying power. Nietian was prepared to imprison it in the star region. Under the pressure of the power of the stars in Nietian's body, the heart of nothingness was slowly forced into his 10th yuan meridian, slowly entering the star region. The star region was filled with the power of the stars. It was the safest place for the heart of nothingness to be imprisoned. Shameless human boy, you underestimate me. I will destroy both jade and stone with you. The moment the heart of nihility completely entered the boundary of the galaxy, it let out a shrill cry. Immediately after, it condensed into a black sphere and directly exploded. Endless black flames spread in all directions, like rolling dark clouds, wreaking havoc in the boundary of the galaxy. Tian was stunned. He didn't expect that the heart of nothingness would rather die than be imprisoned. In the next moment, Tian felt a terrifying power being released from his 10th yuan meridian. It caused huge ripples in his body, causing his divine sense to tremble violently. In the next moment, he lost consciousness. Boom! At the same time, the entire star region was plunged into darkness. Tian's figure swayed slightly, and like a kite with a broken string, he fell straight down. Tian! Tiangong shouted when he saw the scene in the sky. His figure moved, and he caught Tian. Chapter 13-15. Chen Xinwen had been secretly observing the situation. When he saw that Tian was not afraid of the heart of nihility, his heart was filled with fear. Tian was too scary. If he didn't kill him now, he wouldn't have another chance in the future. When he saw that Tian had fainted, he could no longer suppress the murderous intent in his eyes. His figure moved and he struck out with his palm. A huge palm suddenly fell down, pressing down on Tiangong and Tian like a mountain and the sea. Tiangong's strength was not strong. It was impossible for him to contend against Chen Xinwen. If this palm fell, he would definitely die, and Tian would also die tragically. Don't even think about it. Almost at the same time, a low roar sounded. A figure soared into the sky. A pair of black wings appeared on his back. He flashed like a black lightning. This figure was none other than Ghost Scar. On the other side, Duguni's figure also followed, wanting to block Ghost Scar. Don't kill him. However, before Duguni's figure could move, he felt a vast force attacking him. It actually froze the space around him, causing his figure to become sluggish. Illusion Emperor you! Dugunai suddenly turned around and looked at Bailey Fengchen. He frowned and his eyes were full of murderous intent. He didn't expect that Bailey Fengchen would actually intervene and stop him from killing Tian. Boom! Above the void, a violent explosion sounded. Ghost Scar blocked Chen Xinwen's fatal attack in time, saving Tiangong and Tian. Ghost Scar's figure moved and blocked Chen Xinwen. He signaled Tiangong and Tian to leave. Sword Emperor, what do you want? Chen Xinwen's figure froze in the air. He looked at Ghost Scar cold and his face was full of murderous intent. Master Dan Emperor, Tian is my friend, I won't let you hurt him. Ghost Scar said cold. His eyes hidden under the black robe flashed strangely. Tian helped him obtain the Twilight Blade Heart Flame. How could he allow Chen Xinwen to kill Tian? Ghost Scar, do you know whose enemy Tian is? Chen Xinwen's face darkened, and his eyes flashed with cunning. I don't care whose enemy he is. All I know is that he is my friend, and I will protect him, Ghost Scar responded cold, not intending to step aside. Illusion Emperor, do you also want to protect Tian? At this moment, Chen Xinwen suddenly turned to Bailey Fengchen and said darkly, You know the Snow Empress attitude when the 9 emperors discuss this. Tian can't be left alive. If you insist on stopping him, you'll be going against the Snow Empress. Snow Empress. At the last moment, Chen Xinwen still brought him out. Bailey Fengchen frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about something. After a long time, he finally opened his mouth and said indifferently, Director Chen, you don't need to use the Snow Empress to pressure me. I know what I'm doing. I'm definitely going to protect Tian. His voice was calm, but it was filled with an undefiable tyranny. Bailey Fengchen was one of the 9 emperors. There were some things that Ghost Scar didn't know, but he was very clear about. If he stood on Tian's side now, it would be equivalent to breaking off relations with the Snow Empress, and the consequences would be very serious. Bailey Fengchen, you better think carefully about what you just said. Chen Xinwen frowned and said cold. If the Snow Empress was here, would you still dare to speak like this? Chen Xinwen directly called the Illusion Emperor by his name, and it was obvious that he was extremely angry. This was the best opportunity to kill Nie Tian. How could he miss it? Director Chen, I will explain to the Snow Empress myself. You don't need to worry about it. Bailey Fengchen replied cold, and his eyes revealed a hint of killing intent. His meaning was very clear. If Chen Xinwen and Duguanai still wanted to kill Nie Tian, he would definitely not show any mercy. Pill Emperor. Duguani's body shook, and he broke free from the restraining energy around him. He looked at Chen Xinwen, obviously asking for his opinion. Chen Xinwen's face was extremely gloomy. He didn't expect Bailey Fengchen to be so stubborn, and would rather offend the Snow Empress than give in. He couldn't understand. Was Nie Tian that important to Bailey Fengchen? If Mo Qianjun, Zhou Qiansheng, and the others offended the Snow Empress for Nie Tian, Chen Xinwen could understand. But why would Bailey Fengchen do this? He had never heard of any friendship between Nie Tian and Bailey Fengchen. Bailey Fengchen, it seems like you are determined to go against the Snow Empress. After a while, Chen Xinwen said cold, and his threat was self-evident. Bailey Fengchen's strength was second only to the Snow Empress among the 9 emperors. Chen Xinwen didn't dare to act recklessly. He knew that if he fought with Bailey Fengchen now, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. He might even lose his life here. Yes. This time, Bailey Fengchen didn't say anything else. He only said one word. His face was trembling non-stop, and he was suppressing his terrifying anger. He roared in his heart, Shui Lingtian, do you think I don't know? Back then, Brother Long Shao died in your hands. Shui Lingtian was the name of the Snow Empress. This name was a taboo in the Heaven Domain. Even in the Heaven Domain, very few people knew the real name of the Snow Empress. Even Nie Tian didn't know the name of the Snow Empress. Bailey Fengchen had publicly broken off his relationship with the Snow Empress not because of Nie Tian, but because of another person, Long Shao. Long Shao was Long Aotian's father. Long Zhao's death was a huge incident in the Heaven Domain back then, because Long Shao was someone who had the potential to reach the peak. However, no one knew who had killed Long Shao. Bailey Fengchen knew that Long Shao was killed by the Snow Empress. Long Shao had the rare true dragon physique back then, which was why the Snow Empress killed him. The Snow Empress wanted to use Long Zhao's true dragon physique to break through to the godly state. Unfortunately, Long Shao would rather self-destruct than let the Snow Empress obtain the true dragon physique. The Snow Empress thought that she had done everything secretly. However, she would never have thought that Bailey Fengchen had already investigated everything secretly. Long Shao was Bailey Fengchen's best friend, and the latter had broken off his relationship with the Snow Empress because of him. Bailey Fengchen, you are digging your own grave. Chen Xinwen's eyes were extremely gloomy. He growled in a low voice, but he didn't dare to make a move. Get lost! Suddenly, Bailey Fengchen roared. His aura rose abruptly, and a terrifying illusory force was released. A pair of 1,000-meter-long, 7-colored wings formed on his back. The moment the 7-colored wings were released, the surrounding space was lit up, and the sky and earth became illusory. It was extremely unreal. 7-colored illusory wings. Chen Xinwen screamed when he saw the 7-colored wings on Bailey Fengchen's back. His face turned as white as a sheet. The 7-colored illusory wings was Bailey Fengchen's forbidden illusory technique. Once trapped in it, one's divine sense would be destroyed. This is the last warning. Get lost. Bailey Fengchen took a step forward. The 7-colored halos in the air surged, and waves of illusory force were released continuously. Dugranai, let's go. Chen Xinwen swallowed hard. He didn't have the confidence to fight Bailey Fengchen. He glanced at Duguanai, then left. Duguanai frowned a little, then he followed Bailey Fengchen. Bailey Fengchen, you will regret this. Chen Xinwen's voice echoed in the air as the two figures disappeared. Chapter 13:16. Teacher, are you alright? Zhuo Qianxin stepped forward and asked anxiously when he saw Bailey Fengchen's pale face. I'm fine. Bailey Fengchen forced a smile and shook his head. The rainbow wings were forbidden illusionary technique. Even if he only revealed them, it would still be a huge burden. More importantly, Bailey Fengchen had taken the most crucial step, breaking ties with the Snow Empress. When he learned that the Snow Empress had killed Long Xiao, he didn't dare to break ties with the Snow Empress. He was filled with regret. Nie Tian's incident was like a fuse that ignited the flames of hatred that he had suppressed for more than 100 years. Just like he had said, he wouldn't let himself regret it a second time. Heavenly Gong walked over with Nie Tian in his arms and placed him on the ground. Lord Illusory Emperor, can you take a look and see if Nie Tian is alright? Bailey Fengchen looked at Nie Tian and furrowed his brow. Nie Tian's face was black and green. His entire body was emanating a terrifying demonic aura. His divine sense was extremely weak, as if it would disappear at any moment. Illusion Emperor, how is Nie Tian? Is he alright? Tian Gong asked anxiously when he saw Bailey Fengchen frowning and not speaking. I can feel that his body is fusing with the heart of nothingness. The heart of nothingness is too strong. Whether Nie Tian can withstand it depends on himself, Bailey Fengchen said. He looked very worried. Fusing with the heart of nothingness? Tian Gong was stunned when he heard Bailey Fengchen's words. He exclaimed, the heart of nothingness is the demonic sovereign fire. The power it contains is thousands of times stronger than the twilight blade heart flame. How can Nie Tian withstand it? Fusing with demonic fire was very risky. One could be swallowed by the demonic fire if one wasn't careful. Many heavenly emperors had to take a huge risk when fusing with ordinary demonic fire. Nie Tian was fusing with the demonic sovereign fire directly. That was too perverse. Not necessarily. Bailey Fengchen nodded and said, Nie Tian has a very strange power in his body that can suppress the heart of nothingness's devouring power. Maybe he can succeed. The heart of nothingness devoured heaven and earth. If it were an ordinary peak heavenly emperor powerhouse, or even the legendary deity realm powerhouses, fusing with the heart of nothingness, they would have long been devoured. However, Nie Tian was able to hold on for so long, indicating that his martial body was different from ordinary people. Let's hope it works. Tian Gong gulped, but his expression was one of extreme shock. He thought to himself, if Nie Tian really succeeds in merging with the heart of nothingness, I wonder how monstrous he will become. Ghost Scar and Duguanai had fused with half of the Twilight Blade heart flame, and both of them had the possibility of advancing to the divine realm. Nie Tian had fused with the heart of nothingness, which was thousands of times stronger than the Twilight Blade heart flame. Advancing to the divine realm was inevitable. At this moment, Zhuo Qianxin's eyes trembled slightly, and he exclaimed, the aura of the first nightmare. As expected, Bailey Fengchen stood up abruptly. He had also sensed the aura of the first nightmare. In the next moment, a ball of 7 colored flames shot out from the canyon and soared into the sky. It was trying to escape. Qianxin, I'll help you trap it and you can merge with it. Bailey Fengchen's eyes trembled, and he moved his body. He opened his hand, and a huge illusory power surged out. The dark night dust barrier appeared, and directly enveloped the ball of 7 colored flames. It turned out that the first nightmare had not left, but had been hiding in the canyon. The first nightmare had constructed an illusion, and it was very weak at the moment, so it was the best time to merge with it. Master! Zhuo Qianxin's figure flew into the sky, and he hesitated in mid-air. Bailey Fengchen obviously knew what Zhuo Qianxin was thinking, and said in a deep voice, Qianxin, you have the incubus demonic seal in your body, so you have more confidence in merging with the first nightmare. Don't hesitate. Both master and disciple had the possibility of merging with the first nightmare. Bailey Fengchen took the initiative to withdraw at this time, of course, for Zhuo Qianqin's sake. Bailey Fengchen knew that Zhuo Qianqin's potential was greater than his, so he was willing to give the first nightmare to his disciple. Zhuo Qianqin no longer hesitated, and he nodded his head. His figure moved, and he directly entered the seven-colored flame. The moment Zhuo Qianqin entered the seven-colored flame, the flame suddenly became violent. It wanted to escape, but it was trapped by the dark night sealing boundary. After a while, the first nightmare calmed down, as if it had begun to accept Zhuo Qianqin, and turned into balls of seven-colored flame, which flowed into the latter's body. In just an instant, the first nightmare had completely entered Zhuo Qianqin's body. Very good. Bailey Fengchen saw this scene, and he let out a long breath, but his face was slightly pale. After using the rainbow illusory wings and the dark night sealing boundary consecutively, his origin energy was running out. Zhuo Qianqin had already merged with the first nightmare, and what he needed to do next was to slowly refine the power of the demonic flame. However, this was not something that could be done in a day, and it would take at least a few months or even a few years. Seeing that Zhuo Qianqin had successfully merged with the first nightmare, Tiangong was extremely happy. He took a step forward and said with a heavy voice, "Lord Illusion Emperor, let's leave." He was a bit worried that Chen Xinwen and the others might not let this matter go, so it was better to leave Purgatory Mountain as soon as possible. Moreover, Nie Tian was currently unconscious, so he had to be placed in a safe place. All right. Bailey Fengchen's eyes narrowed slightly. He scanned the valley with his divine sense, and after confirming that there were no other demonic flames, he nodded and prepared to leave. Everyone did not waste any more time, and they leaped into the sky. High up in the sky, they were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they were about to leave Purgatory Mountain. There's someone. Right at this moment, Bailey Fengchen's face suddenly darkened, and he looked into the void. Ghost Mark and the others were stunned, and their figures immediately stopped. Lord Illusion Emperor, are you in such a hurry to leave? Then, the void trembled slightly, and three figures appeared. Their auras surged like the sea, extremely terrifying. Chen Xinwen, it's you again. Bailey Fengchen's face instantly darkened when he saw the newcomers. He said in a cold voice, "I have already warned you. Don't pester me anymore." Among the three figures, besides Chen Xinwen and Duguanai, there was also a man in black. It was the commander of the Snow God's Imperial Guards, Qian Chenyu. The three peak experts blocked Bailey Fengchen and the others forcefully. Bailey Fengchen, Nie Tian must die today. Chen Xinwen's lips curled up coldly, and he said sinisterly, "As long as you leave him here, we can let you go." "Do you think that's possible?" Bailey Fengchen frowned slightly, and said in a cold voice, "I have already said that I will personally explain this matter to the Snow Emperor. You don't need to worry about it." Bailey Fengchen suppressed his anger. Just Chen Xinwen and the other two could not stop him. Boom. However, right at this moment, the void suddenly shook violently, and then a figure appeared in the void. He was dressed in white, and his body was surrounded by frost. It was extremely strange. "Illusion Emperor, I am here." The figure in white stepped in the void, and his cold eyes locked onto Bailey Fengchen. He smiled and said coldly, "I want to hear how you are going to explain to me." Chapter 13:17. High up in the sky, a white-robed figure stepped down from the sky. His aura was like the mountains and the seas, and it pressed down endlessly. At this moment, even the space was pulled tight. It was none other than the Snow Empress, one of the 9 emperors. Snow Empress! Tiangong and the rest exclaimed when they saw the Snow Empress. They froze on the spot. No wonder Chen Xinwen and the others dared to stop them. They knew that the Snow Empress would come personally. Bailey Fengchen's eyes trembled as he stared at the Snow Empress in front of him. After that, He calmed down and revealed a cold look in his eyes. Killing intent. The Snow Empress focused her gaze. She could clearly sense the killing intent in Bailey Fengchen's eyes. Illusion Emperor, what do you mean by this? The Snow Empress furrowed her brow and spoke coldly. Originally, he had thought that Bailey Fengchen would obediently hand over Nie Tian after his arrival. He did not expect that not only did Bailey Fengchen not want to hand over Nie Tian, but he even wanted to kill him. Shueling Tian. Bailey Fengchen suddenly lifted his head, and the Snow Empress name became even colder. He uttered the Snow Empress name word by word as he said coldly, "Today we shall settle our differences." And it? After hearing Bailey Fengchen's words, everyone was stunned and their eyes flickered. Could there be some deep hatred between the Snow Empress and the Illusion Emperor? Bailey Fengchen had called the Snow Empress by her name. It was obvious that they were going to break off their relationship. What exactly had happened between them? And it? The Snow Empress was also momentarily stunned, but she immediately understood what was going on. She laughed coldly and said, "Bailey Fengchen, so you were the one who was secretly investigating Long Zhao's death." Bailey Fengchen had never married. He only had one close friend, and that was Long Aotian's father, Long Zhao. If there was anyone worthy of his falling out with the Snow Empress, it could only be Long Zhao. It seemed like the Snow Empress already knew that Bailey Fengchen was investigating Long Zhao's death. It was just that she didn't know who was investigating. Given Bailey Fengchen's attitude, it was obvious that he was investigating Long Zhao's death. Shueling Tian, brother Long Zhao has no enmity with you, but you actually killed him for the sake of his true dragon body. I've been suppressing this hatred in my heart for over 100 years. It's time to put an end to it, Bailey Fengchen said in a deep voice. His eyes were filled with a sharp murderous intent. The Snow Empress had come personally, but Bailey Fengchen had no intention of handing Huo Yuhao over. Right now, both parties were like fire and water, and they would not rest until one of them was dead. Old Snow Empress, you killed my father! At this moment, a furious roar sounded from the void. Following this, a sinister black bony claw appeared and pounced towards the Snow Empress. 8 Desolate Ghost Bone. The sudden scene caused everyone to be startled. Looking at the sinister bone claw, they all cried out in surprise. The sinister bony claw came crashing down from the sky towards the Snow Empress. Its immense power engulfed heaven and earth. Courting death. The Snow Empress focused her gaze and suddenly lifted her head. She locked her eyes on a figure in the distant sky and uttered 2 words coldly. She struck out with her palm, and a huge hand of ice and frost appeared. Boom! The 2 palms collided, and an explosion sounded in the void. The sinister bony claw was shattered, and the huge hand of ice and frost continued to attack the figure in the distance. Aotian! The Illusion Emperor reacted suddenly. He saw that the figure in the distance was Long Aotian. Everyone's attention was on the Snow Empress and the Illusion Emperor, so they did not realize that Long Aotian had arrived. Long Aotian was furious when he heard that the Snow Empress had killed his father, and he charged towards the Snow Empress. However, he was not even at the peak of his strength. How could he be a match for a demigod supreme being? The Snow Empress had destroyed his all-out attack with a single palm strike. Boom! At this moment, the huge hand of ice and frost pressed down in the void, and the space froze instantly. Long Aotian stood in the same place, but he was on the verge of collapsing. If he was hit by the Snow Empress palm strike, he would be crippled even if he did not die. Bailey Fengchen's eyes flickered intensely when he saw this scene. Everything happened in an instant. Even if he attacked now, it would be too late. Boom! Boom! At that critical moment, 2 gigantic sword shadows suddenly appeared in the void and blasted out. They actually merged together in an instant and directly descended, bombarding the giant frost hand. Kaboom! The void trembled slightly, and a loud explosion was heard. The huge hand of ice and frost couldn't withstand the power of the 2 sword shadows, and it collapsed immediately. In the next moment 2 figures appeared. They were like 2 sharp swords, and they stood in the sky. These 2 people were able to block the Snow Empress attack, so they must be top-notch experts. Sword Saint and Sword Emperor. The Illusion Emperor and the others were stunned when they saw the 2 people's faces. The 2 people who had saved Long Outyen were none other than Ye Tian's 2 best friends, the Limitless Sword Saint Mo Qianjun and the Western Sword Emperor Jiu Qianxing. The reason why Long Outyen had appeared here was because he had brought Mo Qianjun and Jiu Qianxing to find Ye Tian. Lin Ling had left with Elder Peng and Elder Peng half a month ago to find Mo Qianjun, and Jiu Qianxing had followed them. The 2 of them were worried that something had happened to Ye Tian, so they came out to look for him. They happened to see what was happening in front of them. It's the 2 of them. Tiangong was delighted when he saw Mo Qianjun and Jiu Qianxing. He revealed a smile on his face. He knew that Bailey Fengchen and Ghost Scar couldn't possibly take Hu Yuhao away in front of the Snow Empress and the other 3 top-notch experts. Mo Qianjun and Jiu Qianxing had appeared at the right time. With these 2 people around, their chances of escaping with Ye Tian had greatly increased. It's these 2. The Snow Empress' eyes narrowed when she saw the Sword Saint and Sword Emperor. There was a tinge of worry in her eyes. Mo Qianjun and Jiu Qianxing were both top-notch experts in the way of the sword. Furthermore, they were very close to Ye Tian. Their appearance had added a lot of variables to the current situation. Ye Tian. Mo Qianjun and Jiu Qianxing relaxed when they saw that Long Outyen was fine. However, they couldn't help but exclaim in unison when they saw Ye Tian on Tiangong's body. The 2 of them were like sharp swords as they arrived beside Tiangong in a flash. The 2 of you have come at the right time. Tiangong laughed bitterly and said, "If you had come a little later, I'm afraid we wouldn't even have seen Ye Tian's corpse." Lord Tiangong, what's wrong with Ye Tian? Mo Qianjun could sense Ye Tian's aura. There was a strong aura of devil fire, and his divine sense was a little weak. He couldn't help but ask in alarm. "He's fusing with a devil fire. I hope he succeeds." Tiangong didn't explain too much, and only answered plainly. Given the current situation, it was best for them to leave as soon as possible. If they couldn't leave, Ye Tian would die regardless of whether he could successfully fuse with the heart of nothingness. The Snow Empress viewed him as a thorn in her side. How could she let him live? Long Outyen also arrived at this moment. When he saw that Ye Tian was unconscious, he couldn't help but roar furiously, "Big brother!" He thought that the Snow Empress had injured Ye Tian, and the fury in his eyes intensified as he glared at the Snow Empress. However, the Snow Empress didn't even look at Long Outyen. The latter's abilities weren't worthy of her attention at all. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Snow Empress could instantly kill Long Outyen. Chapter 13-18. The Snow Emperor stared at Mo Qianjun and Jiu Qianxing with a murderous look in his eyes. In fact, he had wanted to kill them a long time ago, but he never found the opportunity. Now that he had shed all pretense of cordiality, there was nothing to be afraid of. The Snow Empress didn't need to pretend to be noble anymore. This time, he was going to be the real villain. Tiangong sensed the Snow Emperor's murderous intent and furrowed his brows. He swept his gaze across everyone and gasped in shock. There were too many peak experts gathered here. There were 8 of them. The 9 emperors, the Snow Emperor, the Illusion Emperor Bailey Fengchen, the Pill Emperor Chen Xinwen, the Limitless Sword Saint Mo Qianjun, the Sword Emperor Jiu Qianxing, the Evil Sword Duguanai, the North Sea Swordsman Guihen, the Snow God Imperial Guard Commander Qianqinyu. If Ye Tian was included, there would be a total of 9 peak experts. However, Ye Tian was unconscious and unable to fight. Even so, if the other 8 were to fight to the death, it would still be earth-shattering. If this battle started, the entire Purgatory Mountain would be razed to the ground. Boom! However, at this moment the void suddenly shook. A figure flickered through the air, his enormous aura forming a world of its own. Emperor Day-Night. Everyone trembled when they saw the person's face, and their voices became shrill. Another pinnacle expert had arrived, Luo Chunhun, the great emperor of Chunhun. Lord Snow Empress, I'm not late, am I? Luo Chunhun landed not far from the Snow Empress and addressed himself as a subordinate. The 9 emperors were the rulers of the Heaven Realm. Although the Snow Emperor was one of the 9 emperors, the 9 of them did not have a subordinate relationship. Luo Chunhun called himself his subordinate in front of the Snow Emperor. It was obvious that he was trying to flatter him. No. The Snow Emperor smiled. He knew that Luo Chunhun would come, and he came at the right time. Luo Chunhun's arrival reversed the situation. It was originally 4 against 4, but now it was 4 against 5. Although Long Outyen wasn't weak, there was still a gap between him and a pinnacle powerhouse. This is bad. Tiangong frowned and his heart sank. Bailey Fochin, I'll give you one more chance. Forget about Long Shao and hand over Nye Tian to me. Are you still the 9 emperors or the Illusion Emperor? At this moment, the Snow Empress took a step forward, and the corner of her mouth curled into a cold smile. She seemed very high and mighty. He had to admit that he was quite intimidated by Bailey Fengchen's strength. Bailey Fengchen's position among the 9 God Kings was second only to him. If they were to engage in a battle of life and death, the outcome would be hard to predict. If he could make Bailey Fengchen submit now, that would be the final result. Shui Lingtian, you underestimate me, Bailey Fengchen. Bailey Fengchen smiled coldly and said, if this is an opportunity, I'd rather not have it. He was determined to avenge Long Shao, and he was determined to hand over Nye Tian. If that's the case, I'm going to start a massacre today. The Snow Empress's eyes darkened. Without any hesitation, she unleashed her aura. Suddenly, frost and snow appeared within a radius of tens of thousands of meters. A layer of ice crystals appeared and spread in the void. Snowcloud's sacred body. Bailey Fengchen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Bailey Fengchen, I've given you a chance to live. If you don't cherish it, don't blame me for what will happen to you. The Snow Empress leaped into the air, and her aura became more and more intense. Her voice echoed in the void, causing the void to tremble violently. Luo Chunhun and the others immediately dispersed, not daring to get too close to the Snow Empress. Shui Lingtian, I'll definitely avenge Long Shao. Bailey Fengchen unleashed his aura as well, and a pair of rainbow wings appeared on his back. The dreamy rainbow light spread in the void, and resisted the icy frost and snow. Chi chi chi. An ear-piercing sound was heard in the void. The 2 auras collided with each other, and the void seemed to be slowly exploding. It was extremely terrifying. What a terrifying duo! The rest of the people saw this scene and retreated tens of thousands of meters away. They were all shocked. Chen Xinwen's forehead was covered in sweat. He finally realized that if he had fought Bailey Fengchen head-on just now, he would definitely have died under the rainbow wings. Snowcloud's sacred body, cloud wave strike. At that moment, the Snow Empress shouted and struck out with her palm. A rolling palm print appeared in the sky. It was like an ancient beast, wreaking havoc in the void. Almost at the same time, the rainbow wings on Bailey Fengchen's back suddenly closed, and a ray of rainbow light appeared. It was like a ripple in the void. Wherever the rainbow light passed, the frost and snow immediately melted, and everything became clear. A terrifying illusory power pervaded the air like a spring breeze and rain, possessing the power to melt everything. Rumble! In the next moment, the rainbow light and the snowy palm print collided, and the void shook. Suddenly, the void wailed, and the sky changed color. It was as if the entire world was shaking. Peak heavenly emperors understood the laws of heaven and earth, and they could affect the power of heaven and earth with just a simple gesture. The Snow Empress and the Illusion Emperor could be said to be at the peak of the peak. It was evident how powerful their head-on collision was. Boom! An enormous airwave surged in the void, and the colorful light was mixed with a chilling intent. It was extremely terrifying. Everyone trembled slightly, and they could not help but retreat again. The Snow Empress and the Illusion Emperor trembled, and they retreated a few hundred meters at the same time. This was the first time they had fought head-on, and they were evenly matched. Bailey Function's strength is terrifying, and he is able to fight the Snow Empress head-on. Chen Xinwen could not help but exclaim. The Snow Empress has not revealed her true strength. It is still too early to say such things. Du Guanai smiled playfully, but he thought to himself, Xuelingtian's strongest strength is the god's right hand. I wonder if Bailey Fengchen can withstand an attack from a demigod. Du Guanai uttered the Snow Empress name in his mind. It seemed like he was not as respectful to the Snow Empress as he appeared to be. At this moment, Du Guanai suddenly looked at Zhuo Qianxin and thought to himself, an illusionist is too powerful. Bailey Fengchen will definitely die. It seems like I have to deal with Zhuo Qianxin personally. Bailey Fengchen was only a rank 7 illusionist, but he was able to fight the Snow Empress. It was too terrifying. Zhuo Qianxin's talent in illusions was above Bailey Fengchen's. If he was allowed to grow, he would definitely be more terrifying than Bailey Fengchen in the future. Du Guanai's favorite thing to do was to kill geniuses. Sword Saint, Sword Sovereign, take Nie Tian away. At this moment, Bailey Fengchen's body moved, and he retreated a few thousand meters to a place not far from Long Outyin. Mo Qianjun and Jiuqian Xing looked at each other and said at the same time, I will stay. You take Nie Tian away. Both of them knew that their lives would be in danger if they stayed, and they hoped that the other party would take Nie Tian away. They looked at each other and smiled. Then, they looked at Gui Hen and said, Brother Gui Hen, I will leave Nie Tian to you. Since both of them were unwilling to leave, they would both stay, and Gui Hen would take Nie Tian and the others away. Do you want to leave? At this moment, several figures flew over, and a deep voice rang out. Chapter 13:19. Mo Qianjun and Jiuqian Sheng originally wanted to let Ghost Scar bring Nie Tian and the rest to leave, but they were blocked by Du Guanai and the rest. Crap! The hearts of Mo Qianjun and the rest sunk, their expressions becoming solemn. Du Guanai and the rest blocked the way forcefully. If they insisted on letting Ghost Scar bring Nie Tian away, it would be even more dangerous instead. Chen Xinwen, Qian Chenyu, Du Guanai, Luo Chenhun, the four of them were all peak Heavenly Emperor powerhouses. Any two of them could delay Mo Qianjun and Jiuqian Sheng. If they let Ghost Scar leave, that was letting him face two peak powerhouses alone. Furthermore, he still had to bring Nie Tian, Tiangong, as well as Zhuo Qianxin and the rest. Sword Saint, Sword Sovereign, Sword Slaughterer, looks like the three of you chose the wrong side. Du Guanai's figure flashed, directly flying over. His sinister gaze swept across Mo Qianjun and the rest as he spoke coldly. Du Guanai, make your move. Mo Qianjun did not talk nonsense and said directly. His voice just faded when a boundless sword momentum appeared behind him. The sword intent surged out like raging waves, directly enveloping a stretch of the sky. Limitless great sky. Mo Qianjun actually directly used the primordial spirit sword and activated the sword seal, Great Sky Seal. Boom, boom, boom. The limitless Great Sky Sword's aura skyrocketed frenziedly. The terrifying sword seal released surging power. The sword intent enveloped a stretch of space. Heaven and earth seemed to become unstable. The next instant, Mo Qianjun pointed with his longsword. But the Great Sky Sword seal enveloped Nie Tian, Tiangong, and Zhuo Qianxin. He used the Great Sky Seal not to fight, but to protect Nie Tian and the rest. He knew that the following battle would definitely be earth-shattering. Hence, he had to protect Nie Tian and the rest in advance. My Lord Sword Sage, you used your most powerful Juntian seal to protect others. I wonder if you can take a strike from me. Du Guanai smirked when he saw this. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. He and Mo Qianjun were originally evenly matched, but after he fused with the Twilight Blade Heart Flame, his strength rose slightly. If Mo Qianjun used the Juntian sword seal on Nye Tian and the others, his strength would be greatly reduced. Under such circumstances, Duguanai was confident that he could defeat Mo Qianjun. Duguanai, your opponent is me. At this moment, the fiery Jiu Qian Sheng couldn't stand Duguanai's sarcasm any longer. He let out an angry roar, and a black and red heavy sword appeared in his hand. It was his primordial spirit sword, the Ghost Scar of Dusk Night. Boom! Dusk Ghost Scar made his move. A terrifying sword shadow tore through the air with a tremendous momentum, shaking the heavens and earth as it blasted towards Duguanai. You're courting death. Duguanai squinted when he saw this. Then he let out a roar and the 100 forms of the demonic virtual sword appeared in his hand. Boom! In the void, two huge sword shadows collided with each other. The space suddenly trembled violently as if it was about to collapse. The terrible sword will raged in the air, and the sharp sword chi swept across the void, shooting in all directions. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! An ear-piercing sound came from the void. The violent forces collided with each other, forming billows of air that covered the sky and covered the earth. On the ground, the trees were broken, the rocks collapsed, and the earth seemed to be cracked by the impact. Fortunately, Mo Qianjun had prepared in advance and used the Juntian seal to protect Nye Tian and the others. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to bear the impact of such power. How delightful! Jiu Qianxing roared furiously. He revealed a sinister smile, and his figure directly rushed up to fight Duguanai. In the sky, only the boundless sword could be seen colliding with each other, but the two people couldn't be seen. The battle of the pinnacle of swordsmanship shook the heavens and earth. It was extremely terrifying. Mo Qianjun ignored the two of them. He believed that with Jiu Qianxing's strength, even if he couldn't defeat Duguanai, he would definitely be able to protect himself. At this time, Chen Xinwen smiled cold and said to Luo Chenhun, Emperor Chenin, your old opponent is right in front of you. Make your move. Luo Chenhuan's lips curled into a cold smile. His eyes were fixed on Nye Tian and he said coldly, Nye Tian, I didn't think that we would finally meet. This time, I will let you die without you knowing. Nye Tian and Luo Chenhun met again, but the former was unconscious. Is that possible? Mo Qianjun smiled faintly and looked cold at Luo Chenhun. As long as he was here, he would definitely not let anyone hurt Nye Tian. Mo Qianjun, you are indeed strong, but not strong enough to make me fear you. Luo Chenhun smiled sinisterly and took a step forward. His surging aura pressed down. Is that so? Mo Qianjun replied cold. The limitless heavenly sword slashed out and broke Luo Chenhuan's aura. After losing the heavenly sword seal, the power of the limitless heavenly sword was greatly reduced. It could only break Luo Chenhuan's aura, but it couldn't force the latter back. Do it! Luo Chenhun smiled coldly, but his eyes were filled with disdain. Chen Xinwen and Qian Chenyu didn't hesitate anymore. They moved at the same time and attacked Nye Tian. Don't even think about it. Ghost Scar's eyes darkened when he saw this. He slashed out with Ghost Night Rain, and a sword screen of water filled the air. The sword aura was extremely sharp. Chen Xinwen and Qian Chenyu attacked at the same time. Their palms struck the sword screen of water, but their bodies trembled and they were forced back more than 10 meters. After Ghost Scar had fused with the Dusk Blade's heart flame, his strength had exceeded the peak of an ordinary expert. He still had the upper hand against the two of them. Ghost Scar, you have nothing to do with Nye Tian. If you leave now, the Snow Empress will not pursue the matter. Chen Xinwen frowned and said. Ghost Scar laughed. His eyes shone with cold light under his black robe. He said coldly, I have said that Nye Tian is my friend. Stubborn. Chen Xinwen's eyes tightened. He roared and looked at Qian Chenyu. Both of them attacked Ghost Scar at the same time. In that instant, heaven and earth shook. Thunderclouds rolled, and the entire space was filled with frightening power. The battle between the 9 pinnacle experts was earth-shattering. Tiangong looked at the scene in front of him. His nerves were taut, and his eyes were trembling. He muttered, "Jiuqian Sheng and Duguanai are fighting. Duguanai has fused with the Dusk Blade's heart flame. Jiuqian Sheng will not be able to defeat him if the fight drags on. Mo Qianjun and Luo Chenhun. Mo Qianjun does not have the Juntian sword seal, so he will be at a disadvantage. Ghost Scar is fighting Qian Chenyu and Chen Xinwen alone. Even if he has fused with the Dusk Blade's heart flame, he will not be able to fight for long." All 3 sides were at a disadvantage, and Tiangong felt very uneasy. "Lord Tiangong, what should we do?" At this moment, Zhuo Qianchen spoke in a deep voice. His eyes were focused on the battle between the Illusion Emperor and the Snow Empress. "Kid, we are too weak. We can only watch from the side." Tiangong sighed. When he looked at Bailey Fengchen and the Snow Empress, he frowned again. Bailey Fengchen was very strong, but he was facing the Snow Empress, who was even stronger. At this moment, Bailey Fengchen was already struggling. If the Snow Empress used her god's right hand, he would not be able to fight back. The situation is dangerous. Tiangong's heart skipped a beat. He could not help but look at Nye Tian. The latter's body was surging with black flames. They were like circles of frightening runes. It was extremely strange. Chapter 1320. In the skies above Purgatory Mountain, the world-shaking battle was still continuing. Boom! 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 Waves of terrifying power descended from above. The entire Purgatory Mountain was on the verge of collapse. The battle between peak experts was too terrifying. However, at this time, Nye Tian's side was already at an absolute disadvantage. Die! Above the void, a sinister voice resounded. Duguanai stabbed out with his sword, and a gigantic sword that was thousands of meters long appeared in the space. It was Duguani's giant spirit avatar, Devil Void 100 Transformations. Duguanai, who was using the giant spirit true body, completely released the power of the 100 Void Qi, firmly suppressing Jiuqian Sheng's sword intent. The 100 Void Qi not only had a weakening effect on oneself, but more importantly, it could weaken the opponent's strength by hundreds and thousands. Devil Void 100 Transformations was like a moving mountain in the sky. Above it was surging black mist. It was the 100 Void Qi. Jiuqian Sheng activated the Ghost Scar demonic seal within his body, and his entire body was enveloped by the blood-red demonic seal. Even so, he still could not completely resist the weakening power of the 100 Void Qi. Boom! The 100 forms of the devilish void shot through the air towards Jiuqian Sheng. Damn it, let's go all out. Jiuqian Sheng was extremely powerful. His eyes darkened, and the phantom scar of the setting night suddenly expanded. He had also used the giant spirit true body. In the void, the 2 giant swords were like 2 mountains, moving at an extremely fast speed as they charged towards each other. No! Mo Qianjun couldn't help but scream when he saw this scene. He'd already sensed earlier that Jiuqian Sheng's origin energy was slightly lacking, and he'd already fallen into a disadvantageous position. It was simply too dangerous for Jiuqian Sheng to choose to fight with Duguani's primordial spirit. However, it was already too late. The 2 giant swords were moving in the void like 2 ancient beasts. Hum! An earth-shattering sword cry resounded throughout the space, causing even the void to tremble. Boom! In the next moment, the demonic void 100 transformations and the dusk ghost scar finally collided. The world shook, and a terrible explosion spread out from the center of the collision. An extremely terrifying wave of sword will blasted out, spreading in all directions. Chi-chi-chi. An ear-piercing sound rang out in the air as the sword intent wreaked havoc in the space, making it seem as though the space would collapse at any moment. The 2 giant swords collided with each other and cracks appeared on them at the same time. Bastard, you want to perish together with me! Dugu and I suddenly sensed something and exclaimed with a trembling voice. Not only had Jiuqian Xing used the Ghost Scar demonic seal, but he had also ignited his own blood qi. He wanted to take Dugu and I down with him. Dugu Ni's figure moved, retreating several thousand meters away. Arg! Almost at the same time, a scream was heard, and Jiu Qianxing was sent flying. In the end, he still lost to Dugu and I. 9,000 Blossom. Mo Qianjuan's eyes flickered when he saw this. He turned into a ray of light and flew toward Jiu Qianxing and hugged him. Old Mo, I tried my best. Jiu Qianxing's body was covered in blood, and his breathing was weak. It was obvious that his primary spirit and primary meridians were severely injured. I tried my best. It was his last apology to Mo Qianjun and Nie Tian, and it was also his pride as a good friend. 9,000 Blossom, you ignited your blood qi to fight against my primary spirit. You have damaged the foundation of your martial arts. You are destined to be a good-for-nothing for the rest of your life. At that moment, Dugu Ni's figure appeared. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were extremely fierce. Bastard! Mo Qianjun roared. The blood qi in his body was boiling, and his long hair was flying in the air. It was as if he had turned into a demon. He hated himself for being so weak that he could not protect the people around him. On the other side, Ghost Scar was gradually being forced into a dead end. Luo Chunhun and the other two surrounded him. Oh no! Tiangong's heart froze when he saw this. He looked at Nie Tian anxiously, hoping that the latter would wake up. Bailey Fengchen, this is the end. At that moment, the Snow Empress' voice was heard. She threw a punch and a golden fist shadow roared. It was the right hand of the god. Bang! With a muffled sound, Bailey Fengchen was sent flying. The 7-colored wings on his back could not hold on any longer. They shattered, and he fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. Emperor of Illusion! Long Aotian shouted. He flew to Bailey Fengchen and caught him in his arms. Aotian! Bailey Fengchen looked at the son of his old friend, and his eyes trembled. He said, I knew it was Xue Lingtian who killed brother Long Shao. I didn't avenge him, and I didn't tell you the truth. I'm sorry. Emperor of Illusion, don't say sorry. It's all that bastard Xue Lingtian's fault. I must kill him. Long Aotian roared angrily. His face was distorted. Bailey Fengchen, you didn't see me kill Long Shao. Today, I'll let you see his son die in front of you. At that moment the Snow Empress arrived. She took a step forward, and her aura was overwhelming, pressing down on Long Aotian. Aotian, there's something I haven't told you yet. However, Bailey Fengchen did not care about the Snow Empress' words. The corner of his mouth twitched, and a ray of light surged out of his body and entered Long Aotian's body. Long Aotian was slightly stunned. He suddenly felt a violent force exploding in his body, and it was about to tear him apart. 9 Seal True Dragon, unseal it! In the next moment Bailey Fengchen roared. He leaped into the air, and turned into a 7-colored ray of flowing light, charging towards the Snow Empress. Bailey Fengchen did not care about his own life, and attacked the Snow Empress. Illusion Empress! Long Aotian let out a roar when he saw Bailey Fengchen dashing out. However, the energy in his body suddenly went berserk. His meridians, flesh, and bones started to explode as a terrifying energy was unleashed from his body. Boom! At that moment, Bailey Fengchen ignited his last trace of blood to unleash the Dark Night dust-sealing boundary, which engulfed the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress' eyes froze, and she said, Bailey Fengchen, you're courting death. Is that so? Bailey Fengchen laughed coldly. His laughter was extremely terrifying and strange. Boom! Boom! Bang! At that moment, an explosive sound was heard from Long Aotian's body, as if a terrifying force was being unleashed. With the release of this power, his body underwent an extremely terrifying change. His body was expanding, dragon scales appeared all over his body, black dragon-shaped horns grew on top of his head, and his limbs turned into dragon claws. His entire body was actually transforming into a dragon. This is... The Snow Empress' eyes darkened when she saw this, and she blurted out, "True dragon body." He did not expect Long Outyen to have the true dragon body. He only knew that Long Shao had the true dragon body, and that was why he killed him. However, he did not know that Long Outyen also had the true dragon body. Chapter 1321. 9 Seals True Dragon? The Snow Empress was stunned when she heard this. She exclaimed, "That's impossible. I have checked Long Outyen's body. He does not have the body of a true dragon. Bailey Fengchen, you must be lying to me." "Is that so?" Bailey Fengchen smiled coldly and said, "Long Outyen was still a child when brother Long Outyen was killed. I am guessing that someone must have coveted his body of a true dragon. That's why they killed him. That's why I left a seal in Long Outyen's body to suppress his body of a true dragon." "Bailey Fengchen, you?" The Snow Empress' eyes widened when she heard this. There was a look of shock in her eyes. She did not expect to be deceived by Bailey Fengchen. "Shui Lingtian, the seal I left in Long Outyen's body is the Rainbow Illusory Seal. Even though it can suppress the body of a true dragon, it can also stimulate the body of a true dragon." Bailey Fengchen's voice continued to speak cold. "Long Outyen is the legendary 9 Seals true dragon. I would like to see if your god's right hand can go against a 9 Seals true dragon." 9 Seals true dragon? The Snow Empress roared. Her eyes were cold and murderous. Of course, she knew what a 9 Seals true dragon meant. The body of a true dragon was a heaven-rank spiritual body. The body of a true dragon was divided into 9 ranks, from the first seal true dragon to the 9 Seals true dragon. Long Shao was a 6 Seals true dragon back then. Unfortunately, he was still too weak and did not allow the Snow Empress to break through to the godly state. If he had known that Long Outyen was a 9 Seals true dragon, he would have killed him at all costs to obtain the power of the 9 Seals true dragon. If he had merged with the power of the 9 Seals true dragon, he would have definitely broken through to the godly state. "Bailey Fengchen, you bastard!" The Snow Empress was enraged when she thought of this. It was Bailey Fengchen who had caused her to lose her chance to break through to the godly state. The enraged Snow Empress roared, and threw a punch with the right hand of God. The dark night dust barrier instantly shattered. Bailey Fengchen's body could no longer withstand the saint energy. At this moment, he looked at Long Outyen, who was in the midst of his dragonification, and muttered, "Brother Long Outyen, this is as far as I can go." Bang! In the next moment, Bailey Fengchen's body shook violently and exploded into a bloody light. Bailey Fengchen, one of the 9 emperors, the Illusion Emperor, had fallen. The sudden scene stunned everyone on the spot, and their hearts beat violently. Everyone had guessed that the Illusion Emperor was likely to be killed by the Snow Empress. However, it was still very shocking when it actually happened. "Teacher!" In the distance, Zhuo Qianxin saw the bloody scene, and his choked throat finally produced a sound. He let out a low roar, and he could no longer hold back his tears. Although he and Bailey Fengchen were master and disciple, they were like father and son. Bailey Fengchen had never married in his life, and he only took Zhuo Qianxin as his disciple. He treated him like his own son, and the relationship between master and disciple was indescribable. How could Zhuo Qianxin not be heartbroken when he saw his teacher die in front of him in such a bloody scene? Qin Xinwen, Luo Chenhun, and the rest were also stunned. They did not expect the Snow Empress to really kill Bailey Fengchen. No matter what, the Illusion Emperor was one of the 9 emperors, and was appointed by the upper domain. If the Snow Empress killed Bailey Fengchen, how was he going to explain it to the upper domain? However, the Snow Empress did not care about anything at this moment. Her pair of greedy eyes stared at Long Outyen, who was still in his dragonification, with a burning gaze. He must get the 9-seal true dragon. Roar! At this moment, Long Aotian finally completed his dragonification. He clearly saw the scene of Bailey Fengqian being tortured to death by the Snow Empress. His dragon body flipped in the air, and he roared into the sky. The dragon roar reverberated in the void, and heaven and earth resonated. This? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, and their eyes became blurry. This was the power of the 9-seal true dragon. It was too terrifying. Right now, Long Aotian's body was more than 3,000 meters tall. It was even more terrifying than the giant spiritual true body of a peak heavenly emperor. What was even stranger was that the dragon scales on his body shone with 7 colors, while one of his dragon arms was black, and it was a bone arm. When Long Aotian was young, Bailey Fengqian planted a rainbow illusory seal in his body. Unknowingly, the rainbow illusory seal had already fused with the 9-seal true dragon. When Bailey Fengqian unsealed the rainbow illusory seal, the 9-seal true dragon's body appeared, and the dragon scales on his body shone with 7 colors. As for the bone arm, it was naturally the 8 desolation ghost bone. The 9-seal true dragon had fused perfectly with the rainbow illusory seal and the 8 desolation ghost bone. The 9-seal true dragon's huge body tumbled in the void. Its eyes were like the sun and the moon as it stared at the Snow Empress. Boom! In the next moment, the true dragon's body suddenly moved, and it charged towards the Snow Empress. How could Long Aotian let go of Xue Lingtian, who was in front of him, to avenge his father's death? Long Aotian, your 9-seal true dragon has just been unsealed. I want to see how strong you are. The Snow Empress spoke coldly. She clenched her right hand into a circle and punched out. The void trembled, and a huge fist shadow appeared and attacked the 9-seal true dragon. Boom! A dull sound could be heard. The 9-seal true dragon completely ignored the Snow Empress attack, and directly broke through the fist shadow. Its earth-shaking draconic might came crashing down, and it was determined to kill the Snow Empress on the spot. The Snow Empress' eyes darkened. Evidently, she did not expect the 9-seal true dragon's strength to be so strong that even her god's right hand could not resist it. What terrifying strength! The others were also stunned, and they could not believe what they were seeing. The strength that Long Aotian had displayed was too terrifying. It seemed to be at the godly state level, and he was not afraid of the Snow Empress god's right hand at all. It was too terrifying. The Snow Empress moved like a bolt of white lightning, and she rose into the sky. A strange smile appeared at the corner of her mouth, and she thought to herself, 9-seal true dragon, huh? It seems like I'm going to show my true strength today. Everyone thought that the god's right hand was the Snow Empress' strongest trump card. Unfortunately, they were all wrong. At this moment, the Snow Empress' body trembled slightly, and a frightening strength surged out. The entire space was immediately engulfed, and instantly turned into a world of ice and snow. This is? Everyone was stunned when they saw this. No one expected the Snow Empress to have an even stronger trump card other than the god's right hand. 9-seal true dragon, I want to see if you can withstand the 7th seal, the ice-sealing devilish seal. The Snow Empress' voice rang out as she looked at the huge true dragon beneath her. There was a look of disdain in her eyes. Her greatest trump card was not the god's right hand, but the 6th seal of the 10 great seals, the ice-sealing devilish seal. Ice-sealing devilish seal. Everyone's hearts trembled when they heard these words, and their eyes were filled with shock. Luo Chenhun, what are you waiting for? Kill Nye Tian. The Snow Empress' voice rang out at this moment. She could sense that Nye Tian seemed to be fusing with some kind of power, and it was better to kill him as soon as possible, just in case. Now that they had Long Aotian's 9-seal true dragon, Nye Tian was no longer as important. Luo Chenhun and the rest reacted, and their murderous gazes locked onto Nye Tian. Boom! At this moment, Nye Tian's body trembled slightly, and a ball of black flames was released and blossomed. Chapter 1322. Just as Luo Chunhun was about to attack Nie Tian and the others, Nie Tian, who had been in a coma, suddenly reacted. All of a sudden, Nie Tian's body began to tremble. Black flames suddenly burst out of his body and spread out into the air. Bang! With a muffled sound, the Juntian sword seal that wrapped around his body directly collapsed. The black flames spread in the void like rolling dark clouds, as if they were going to devour everything. What was strange was that these black flames actually avoided Tiangong and Zhuqianchen, and did not cause any harm to them. It was obvious that Nie Tian was controlling these flames. Nie Tian, Tiangong's body trembled slightly, and he took a few steps back in the void. He said in a trembling voice, "The heart of nihility has been successfully integrated." Hearing this name, Luo Chunhun, Chen Xinwen, and the others were stunned, and they froze on the spot. Chen Xinwen watched as the heart of nihility entered Nie Tian's body. He had originally thought that Nie Tian would be devoured by the heart of nihility, but he did not expect that Nie Tian could integrate with the heart of nihility. In an instant, Chen Xinwen frowned, and his whole body trembled inexplicably, as if he had been hit. He knew how terrifying the heart of nihility was. If Nie Tian really integrated with the heart of nihility, how terrifying would he be after awakening? Emperor Chunin, let's attack together and kill Nie Tian. If we wait for him to wake up, we'll be in trouble. Realizing this, Chen Xinwen screamed, and his figure moved. He struck out with his palm, suddenly aiming to kill Nie Tian. Almost at the same time, Luo Chunhun also reacted, and also struck out with his palm. Like a thunderbolt, the palm force was released, condensing into a huge handprint, and blasted towards Nie Tian. "Don't kill him!" Ghost Scar shouted when he saw the situation. He wanted to take action, but a black mist suddenly appeared above his head. It was boundless, covering him. Damn it! The one who attacked him was none other than Qian Chenyu. At this time, Qian Chenyu only needed to restrain Ghost Scar. There was no need to fight him head-on. Ghost Scar was being held up by Qian Chenyu and could not split himself. Moreover, his yuan power was quickly being consumed. If he forcefully used the ultimacy doppelganger at this moment, it was extremely likely that his life would be in danger. Moreover, he had just fused with the Dusk Blade Heart Flame. If the yuan power in his body was extremely weak, the Dusk Blade Heart Flame might leave his body. On the other side, Zhuqianchen looked at the strange scene in front of him. Just as he was about to speak, he felt a wave of cold and murderous intent, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. "Zhuqianchen, leave Nie Tian to them. You're mine." Duguanai chuckled, his cold eyes locked on Zhuqianchen. He wanted to kill the latter to eliminate any future troubles. The power of an illusionist was too strange. If he let Zhuqianchen live, he would be a big problem in the future. Oh no! Tiangong's heart trembled when he saw this scene, and his expression suddenly changed. Although Zhuqianchen had fused with the first nightmare, the gap between him and a peak expert was extremely large. He could not block Duguanai's killing move. Die! Duguanai let out a low growl. His figure turned into a beam of black light as he charged straight at Zhuqianchen. The 100 transformations of the demonic void released the 100 void chi, which condensed into a pair of black palm prints in the void and pressed down wildly. Heaven and earth laws coupled with the 100 void chi, coupled with the sharpness of the ultimate sword profound meaning, this sword of Duguanais vowed to kill in one blow. Zhuqianchen stood in the void, the devil rainbow sword appearing in his hand, striking out with a devil rainbow piercing the sun's 7-colored sword. Light bloomed in the air, wanting to make a final resistance. Unfortunately, his strength was too weak. An ant also wants to overturn the heavens? Duguanai smiled coldly. Zhuqianchen's strength was only at the 5th level Heavenly Emperor. It was not enough to look at all. The berserk black palm print pressed over frenziedly. Zhuqianchen's 7-colored sword light was directly annihilated inside. Just as he was about to be hit by the black palm print, an abnormality suddenly occurred. Rumble! The void suddenly swayed a little. A streak of black light soared through the air, and actually instantly spread into a sea of black flames, forming a shield of black flames, enveloping Zhuqianshan. Rumble! When Duguni's fatal blow landing on that shield of black flames, it was actually directly absorbed, devoured, vanishing from sight. Amen. Seeing this scene, Duguni's brows furrowed, his expression incomparably surprised. Following that, he turned to look at Nie Tian, the surprise in his eyes instantly replaced by cold, killing intent. Nie Tian had yet to wake up. Being besieged by Luo Chenhun and Chen Xinwen, he could actually still divert attention to save Zhuqianshan. It was seriously too terrifying. Rumble! At virtually the same time, Luo Chenhun and Chen Xinwen's attacks descended, crushing onto Nie Tian with a loud bang. Right at this instant, Nie Tian's eyes suddenly snapped open. His figure moved, standing up. His eyes shot out a strange black light, terrifying black flames surging all over his body, as if a fiend god had descended to the world. Rumble! A hint of a cold smile curled up at the corners of Nie Tian's mouth, and he casually smacked a palm out. A handprint condensed from the black flames of nothingness appeared, pouncing out frenziedly. Rumble! The void trembled, heaven and earth wailed. Luo Chenhun and Chen Xinwen's attacks were actually directly shattered by the impact of the black flames of nothingness, instantly being devoured. Nie Tian Yu. The sudden scene that happened made Luo Chenhun and Chen Xinwen stunned, their figures retreating wildly as they cried out in surprise. At this moment, they discovered that Nie Tian's strength actually already reached 9th level Heavenly Emperor. Very clearly, Nie Tian really fused with the Heart of Nothingness. That was how he could increase his strength. Heart of Nothingness, the legendary supreme fiend fire. How could Nie Tian's martial physique be so powerful, to be able to fuse with the supreme fiend fire? In the distance, seeing that Nie Tian finally woke up, Tian Gong cried out in surprise, agitated until he was about to cry, Nie Tian. When Mo Qianjun and Zhuqian Sheng, two people, saw that Nie Tian woke up, they shouted at the same time, incredibly excited. Nie Tian's figure moved, like a streak of black light, directly arriving beside Mo Qianjun and Zhuqian Sheng. Divine sense instantly swept over, confirming that the two people were not in mortal danger. His expression eased up slightly. Everything that happened just now, Nie Tian knew all about it. Even though he was in a coma, his divine sense was still awake. When he was unconscious, the Heart of Nothingness released the apocalyptic power in its body, wanting to perish together with Nie Tian. But it was suppressed by the Origin Star Stone. No idea why, the Origin Star Stone and the Heart of Nothingness underwent some kind of fusion. This kind of fusion not only increased Nie Tian's strength, but it also made the star power's originally heaven-defying devouring power have a qualitative improvement. At this time, with a casual attack from Nie Tian, he could release a very terrifying devouring power. Nie Tian was still unclear what kind of astonishing change the Heart of Nothingness brought to his martial physique. He just had a feeling that it seemed like the Origin Star Stone was completely transformed by the Heart of Nothingness. Brother Mo, Brother Gio, you guys retreat to one side. Leave the following matters to me. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Waving his hand, he sent Mo Qianjun and Zhuqian Sheng to a safe area. Following that, his figure moved, arriving in front of Luo Chenhun and the rest.